The day the apocalypse game began, I was losing a rhythm game on purpose. That sounds stupid, but stay with me, because that useless little habit was the reason I survived when the sky cracked open and every phone, billboard, smartwatch, microwave screen, an arcade cabinet in the city turned black at the exact same time. I was in a half-broken arcade beside the bus station, holding 2 plastic drumsticks, watching notes fall faster than rain. People thought I played that machine because I had nothing better to do. They were mostly right. But the real reason was simple. I liked waiting until the last possible instant. I liked letting the warning lights flash, letting the crowd gasp, letting the machine think I had lost, and then I hit everything with both hands at once. Left hand, right hand, right hand, not together, not separate, but like 2 players trapped in one body and forced to share rent. The combo counter climbed, the machine screamed. A kid behind me accused me of cheating. The arcade owner told me I was going to break the cabinet. I grinned, missed the final note on purpose, and let the screen flash failure. Then the real screen appeared. It floated in front of my face, pale blue and perfectly silent. Body scan complete. Mind scan complete. Potential awakened. All around me, people froze inside rings of light. The security guard by the door got iron skin and immediately slapped his own chest like he was testing a new appliance. A woman near the claw machines got beast strength and lifted the prize cabinet with one hand by accident. A college guy holding a math textbook got Manhwa calculation and started crying because he thought that sounded important. A man outside got flame palm, cheered, and set his sleeve on fire within 3 seconds. Then my window flickered. Reaction threshold exceeded. Unique skill assigned. Dual Wield. For 3 quiet seconds, nobody understood. Then everyone laughed. The iron skin guard said dual wielding was for movies. The math guy said 2 weapons ruin posture, balance, reach, defense, stamina, and basic physics. The sleeve fire guy, still smacking smoke off his arm, told me I had received the cosplay starter pack. The system dropped 2 weapons at my feet, a short sword and a dagger, cheap, dull, ugly. They looked like they had been stolen from a discount Halloween aisle. Someone told me to juggle them. I picked them up. The second my fingers closed around both grips, the world changed. It did not stop. It slowed just enough for me to notice how messy everything was. Dust fell from the ceiling in separate flakes. The guard's breathing sounded too loud. The sword in my right hand had weight, reach, and hunger. The dagger in my left had speed, angle, and bad intentions. My brain did not treat them like 2 tools. It treated them like 2 bodies. Then the first monster came through the arcade wall. It was small, gray, and ugly, like a boiled rat had been given knives for elbows and too much confidence. It landed on the air hockey table, screeched, and leaped at the laughing crowd. The iron skin guard tried to block it with his face because apparently that was his whole plan. The monster bounced off his shoulder, spun in the air, and sliced his cheek on the way down. He screamed like the world had lied to him. The monster turned toward me. Everyone stepped back. I stepped forward. My right hand flashed the short sword across its eyes. The monster snapped at the shiny thing. My left hand had already gone under the jaw. The dagger slid across its ankle tendon. It dropped. The sword pinned one claw. The dagger reversed and stabbed through the throat. First kill achieved. The monster dissolved into smoke. Nobody laughed that time. I should have said something cool. I had the perfect moment. People were staring at me like the joke had bitten back. But my brain was still catching up to the fact that I had just killed an apocalypse rat with bargain bin metal and looked pretty good doing it. So I said I want a refund. The dagger feels used. That was how my apocalypse started. Outside, the city had become a game map. Streets were split by glowing barriers. Dungeon symbols floated over buildings. Blue lanterns burned at intersections, marking safe zones. Beyond those circles, monsters crawled out of black rifts in the asphalt, like the city had been hiding a nightmare under the road. People ran, people screamed. People learned very quickly that receiving a flashy skill did not come with courage. Flame Palm was amazing until the user panicked and burned his own shoes. Beast's strength was great until the user punched a stone monster and broke her wrist because strength did not include knowing where to hit. Mana calculation was powerful until a goblin threw a brick during the calculation. Dual Wield was supposed to be useless. The first wave proved it was useless only when the wrong person had it. Goblin charged from the left with a wooden club. My right hand caught the club with the sword. My left hand cut the fingers holding it. When the club dropped, I kicked it into the air, caught it under my elbow, and flung it backward into another goblin's face. A bigger monster jumped from a bus roof. I threw the dagger at its eye, not because throwing your weapon is smart, but because I was already running to where it would land after dodging. The monster twisted midair, avoiding the dagger, and exposed its ribs. My sword entered first. My hand caught the dagger as it bounced off a bus window. The dagger entered second. 2 hits, 2 angles, 1 mistake punished twice. That became my language. Normal fighters had to choose, block or attack, dodge or counter, save a stranger or finish the monster. I did not choose. My right hand made one decision, my left hand made another. My feet made a third decision just to annoy everyone. By the time the first wave ended, I had killed 17 monsters, saved 8 people, and accidentally collected 3 goblin clubs because my left hand kept picking things up while my right hand was busy. When the blue lanterns expanded and pushed the monsters back, survivors gathered at the bus station. A ranking board appeared above the street, and people instantly started acting like the board had always existed and they had been born to stand under it. At the top was Marcus. Marcus had Shadow Chain, a skill that fired dark chains from his palms and bound enemies from a distance. He had a smooth smile, expensive shoes, and the kind of voice that made every sentence sound like he was forgiving you for being disappointing. During the first wave, he had killed plenty of monsters by letting other people take the first hit, chaining the monster once it got distracted, and finishing it safely. The ranking board loved him. Marcus climbed onto a burned-out car and told everyone he would organize the safe zone. He did not say rule, he said organize. That was how I knew he wanted to rule. Beside him stood Serena, an ice mage with silver blue light circling her hands. She had frozen an entire street of monsters during the first wave, and she looked at my short sword and dagger like I had brought kitchen tools to a dragon fight. Owen was the only person who came near me without laughing. I knew Owen from the arcade. He was the kind of guy who could fix a jammed coin slot, build a radio out of trash, and still trip over a chair that had not moved in 10 years. The system had given him trapcraft, which sounded incredible until he admitted he needed time, materials, and at least one flat surface, which the apocalypse was not exactly handing out politely. He stared at my weapons, then at the smoke fading from my sleeves. Everyone says dual wielding is bad because most people can't make both hands do useful things at the same time, he said. I looked at my left hand, which was spinning the dagger without asking me. Mine gets bored. Owen grinned. That is terrifying. Marcus noticed us and called me forward. He wanted the crowd to see him being generous. He asked my name. I told him Jace. He asked my skill. I told him. The crowd whispered, and a few people smiled like they had been waiting for permission to laugh again. Marcus smiled wider. Dual wield is brave, he said, but brave is not the same as useful. I nodded. That explains your shoes. Owen choked. Serena raised one eyebrow. Marcus kept smiling, but the shadow under his feet twitched. He pointed at a chained monster behind the barrier, one of the bigger rat things with bone plates down its back, and suggested a demonstration. He said I could prove my worth by finishing it before the next wave. The monster was already bound. If I killed it, he would say it was easy. If I got hurt, he would say dual wield failed. Simple trap. So I made the trap mine. I walked toward the beast, watching Marcus's fingers. His shadow chains were still connected to the monster, thin and hidden near the ground. He was planning to loosen them at the perfect moment and let the beast lunge. My right hand tapped the sword against the monster's bone plate. My left hand tossed the dagger and caught it. Marcus relaxed one finger. The chain slackened. The monster exploded forward. I did not dodge backward. That was what everyone expected. I stepped in under its jaw and let my sword scrape across its teeth. Sparks flew. My dagger cut the hidden shadow chain at the same time. Marcus flinched as his skill snapped back into his palm. The monster, suddenly free, went after the person who had been controlling it. Marcus's face changed for half a second. It was the first honest thing I saw from him. He shot another chain, but my sword had already hooked the monster's bone plate, and my dagger was already stabbed into the street. I used both weapons like handles, twisted my whole body, and redirected the charging beast sideways. It flew past Marcus close enough to tear his sleeve, smashed into the burned-out car, and dropped stunned. Then I climbed onto its back, crossed both blades over its neck, and pulled. The kill message flashed. The crowd went silent again. I turned to Marcus and smiled. Good thing you organized that. That was the first day people stopped calling dual wield useless in front of me. Behind my back, sure, people are brave when your back is turned, but in front of me they use softer words: unusual, risky, interesting. A potential support style. Support almost hurt my feelings. The next morning, the first dungeon opened under the supermarket. It had been normal before the apocalypse. Fluorescent lights, sad vegetables, one cashier who had seen too much. Now the sliding doors were replaced by a black arch, and above it floated the words Copper Nest. Recommended party size, 5. Marcus announced that only the strongest should enter. Then he looked at me and said I could come if I stayed behind the real damage dealers. Serena said nothing, but her eyes clearly agreed. Owen wanted to join, but Trapcraft had not leveled enough yet, and the dungeon warned that low stamina players might be eaten first. Owen took that personally. I entered with Marcus, Serena, and 2 loud fighters with big weapons and bigger opinions. Dungeon smelled like rotten fruit and wet metal. Aisles stretched into tunnels. Shopping carts hung from the ceiling like cages. Price tags floated in the air with monster names instead of numbers. The first ambush came from the cereal aisle. Insect monsters poured from the shelves, each one the size of a dog, with wings like broken glass. The big weapon fighters swung wildly and mostly murdered cereal boxes. Marcus chained 3 bugs and smiled like someone was filming him. Serena froze the floor, which worked beautifully until one fighter slipped and crashed into the other like bowling pins. I ran up the side of a shelf. That is not a metaphor. I stabbed the dagger into the metal, kicked off the lower rack, and used the sword as a counterweight. For 3 steps, I ran along the shelf before gravity remembered me. My right hand cut wings, my left hand stabbed eyes. I landed on a shopping cart, rolled backward under a diving bug, grabbed 2 hanging price tags, and swung between aisles like the world's least responsible employee. A bug opened its mouth to spit acid. My sword sliced the acid sac before it fired. My dagger flicked the leaking acid into another bug's face. That bug panicked, crashed into a shelf, and knocked down 20 boxes of sugar cereal. The dust stuck to the acid stuck to the swarm. Serena saw it instantly and froze the sugar cloud. The entire swarm became glittering candy statues. I landed beside her and tapped 1 frozen bug with my dagger. It shattered. Serena stared at the aisle, then at me. That was stupid. It worked. That does not make it less stupid. I call it advanced grocery combat. She turned away, but I saw the corner of her mouth move. Dungeon got nastier deeper in. Bread golems in the bakery, meat hooks that tried to grab us, mirror ice in the freezer section. Every reflection showed a monster 2 seconds before it attacked. That was where Dual Wield became something else. A freezer door exploded beside me. I saw the reflection first. My right hand blocked the real claw. My left hand stabbed the reflection. It should not have worked. It absolutely worked. Mirror cracked and the monster screamed like I had stabbed its soul. New combat pattern recognized. Offhand interaction unlocked. For a second the dagger glowed, not brighter, smarter, like the blade had learned that the battlefield was also an enemy. Another mirror monster came from above. My sword fought its body, my dagger fought the reflection. I parried claws with steel and cut angles in the air with the dagger, breaking mirror lines before attacks finished forming. Serena froze the floor behind me, and I used her ice like a skating path, sliding through enemies while both weapons drew different stories. Marcus watched from the rear, and I could feel his mood turning darker. People like Marcus can accept luck, they can accept flashy. What they hate is watching a joke become a problem. Boss waited in the storage room, curled around a mountain of cracked shopping carts. It was a centipede made of copper wire and bone, with hundreds of legs and a human-shaped mask where its face should have been. Every time the lights flickered, some of its legs vanished and reappeared a heartbeat later. The big weapon fighters charged. They lasted 6 seconds. Marcus wrapped the boss in shadow chains. Serena froze half its body. For one perfect moment, it looked easy. Then the boss split. Not into 2 bodies, into 2 timings. Half its legs moved in the present, half moved a heartbeat later. Marcus's chains caught the first timing. Serena's ice caught the second. The body slipped between both like a song played off rhythm. Everyone froze. I started laughing. Not because it was funny, because for the first time since the apocalypse began, a monster spoke my language. I ran in. My right hand fought the present, my left hand fought the delay. The sword blocked legs already there, the dagger cut legs that had not arrived yet. My eyes tracked the body, but my hands tracked 2 different clocks. The boss flickered faster, that only made the pattern louder. I stabbed the dagger into the floor and used it as a pivot. My sword carved through the present legs. I ripped the dagger free in time to cut the delayed legs as they appeared. Copper wire snapped. Sparks poured around me. The boss screeched and lifted its mask. Behind the mask was a glowing core. Marcus saw it too. His chain shot past my shoulder, not at the boss but at the core. He wanted the final hit. So I gave him one. My sword struck the chain and guided it into the wrong angle. Marcus's chain wrapped around the boss's mask instead of the core. The boss jerked toward him. Marcus's eyes widened. My dagger entered the core from below. My sword entered from above. Dual weak point strike. Boss defeated. Dual skill casting unlocked. Storage room erupted in copper light. Items dropped everywhere. Marcus stood still, his chain dissolving. Serena walked toward the boss remains and looked at the two crossing cuts through the core. What did you unlock? I checked the window. Dual skill casting. While holding two compatible weapons, each hand may channel a separate skill or spell. Control difficulty extreme. I stared at the words, then I looked at my cheap sword and dagger. The system had handed a fireworks factory to a man who thought grocery combat was a strategy. That night, Marcus tried to have me killed. He did it carefully, because cowards with confidence always think careful makes them invisible. He waited until the safe zone quieted, then sent 3 men who had not seen the dungeon. They followed me into the parking garage under the bus station, where the lights blinked and the corners were deep enough to hide bad decisions. Owen had warned me 10 minutes earlier. He noticed them watching my reflection in a vending machine. Owen was not strong, but he had the survival instincts of a cockroach with anxiety. They are going to jump you, he whispered. I know. Then why are you walking into the parking garage? Because the safe zone lanterns record criminal attacks. Owen blinked. How do you know? I pointed at a man who had tried to rob someone and was being dragged by 2 stone sentries toward a glowing cell under the station. Owen looked at the sentries, then at me. You are about to weaponize jail. I prefer civic combo. The attackers came at me on level 2. One had wind step, one had heavy fist, one could make his skin spark with electricity. They expected 3-on-1 to be unfair. It was unfair. For them. Wind step appeared behind me with a knife aimed at my ribs. My left hand reversed the dagger and caught his wrist without me turning around. My right hand threw the short sword at heavy fist, forcing him to block. The electric one lunged at my side. I stepped on Wind Step's foot, used his wrist as a handle, and spun him into the electricity. He lit up like a festival decoration. Heavy fist swung at my head. I ducked, caught my returning sword after it bounced off a pillar, and slapped his elbow sideways with the flat. My dagger cut the belt pouch from his waist. His potion fell. My foot kicked it under a car. He looked down. That was rude. The sword hilt hit his chin. The dagger tapped his throat, not deep enough to kill, just deep enough for the system to recognize threat reversal. Criminal assault recorded. Self-defense confirmed. The electric attacker tried to run. Owen's trap went off. It was a soda can, bent wire, and 3 nails arranged in a way that made the floor suddenly very persuasive. The attacker tripped and rolled face first into the blue circle of a lantern. The stone sentries rose. I stepped back and let them work. By morning, Marcus's smile had cracks. By noon, my ranking had climbed past his favorite fighters. By evening, people started asking if Dual Wield had openings. That was when I learned something important. It does not matter how many monsters you kill. Some people will still doubt you until doubting you becomes embarrassing. So I made it embarrassing. For the next week, I took every ugly job nobody wanted. Sewer nest, rooftop harpies, tunnel worms, a haunted laundromat that tried to drown people in washing machines. Each weird battlefield taught my hands a new joke. Against sewer crawlers, my sword blocked teeth while my dagger cut pipe valves, blasting monsters with pressurized water. Against harpies, my sword threw knives into wings, while my dagger held a chain hooked to a billboard, turning me into a swinging human blender. Against the laundromat ghost, I fought with a sword in one hand and a stolen mop in the other, because the ghost was immune to metal, but apparently not to industrial detergent. The system rewarded nonsense as long as the nonsense worked. My sword learned flame edge from a red crystal. My dagger learned blink cut from a silver shard. At first, casting both felt like trying to sneeze and whistle while doing math in a burning elevator. My right hand wanted fire, my left hand wanted space, my brain wanted a nap. First time I tried, I blinked sideways and set a mailbox on fire. Owen laughed so hard he had to sit down. Serena crossed her arms and said control mattered more than speed. So I practiced until control became speed. I learned that flame edge liked wide arcs, while blink cut liked sharp angles. If I blinked during the exact moment my sword released flame, the fire trail stayed behind me like a burning afterimage. Monsters would charge the man standing still. Then I would appear behind them, and the man standing still would explode into fire because he had been a leftover image. Owen named it the Spicy Ghost. I hated that name. Then I used it 17 times. Serena challenged me after the rooftop harpy raid. Not because she hated me. Serena was not like Marcus. She did not need me to be weak. She needed to know whether I was strong enough to trust when things got worse. That was different. More annoying, but different. She found me on the roof of an office building, while the sunset burned orange behind the broken skyline. Her ice staff floated beside her. The air around her was cold enough to make my breath visible. Fight me. I looked at the half-eaten protein bar in my hand. Can I finish being miserable first? No. The duel began before the system finished counting down. Serena's ice was beautiful and cruel. Spears rose from the roof. Frost rings expanded under my feet. She did not throw one attack at a time. She built a cage, each spell forcing me where the next spell wanted me to go. That was the first time a person made me feel slow. I cut 3 ice spears, blinked past a 4th, and slid under a frost ring. My sword left flames on the roof to melt my path. My dagger stabbed ice walls and used them as anchors to whip me around corners. Serena tracked me anyway. A blade of ice touched my throat. The duel froze. For 1 second I saw everyone else's version of me. Fast, flashy, dangerous, but still a person reacting to what already existed. Serena was not faster than me. She was earlier than me. She did not beat my reaction. She made my reaction unnecessary. That annoyed me so much I almost respected her. Almost. The ice blade cracked. My left hand had thrown the dagger into the sky before I dodged. I had aimed at the billboard above her. The dagger cut the support cable. The billboard fell. Serena glanced up, and that tiny glance moved the ice blade from my throat. My sword tapped her staff. My returning dagger landed in my left hand and tapped her shoulder. Drawn. Serena stared at the fallen billboard. You dropped advertising on me. It was for a sandwich place. Technically, lunch attacked you. You fight like a criminal with circus training. Thank you. It was not a compliment. It landed like one. After that, Serena stopped calling Dual Wield impractical. She started calling it irritating, which felt like a promotion. Then Silverline Mall became a vertical dungeon. Escalators moved without power. Glass elevators crawled up and down with no cables. Every store had a different monster nest, and above the central atrium floated a crystal timer counting down from 6 hours. If the boss was not killed before the timer ended, the mall would overflow and flood the nearby safe zones with monsters. Marcus wanted to lead the raid. He placed me near the side, where my mobility could be useful. That was fine. Side positions have walls, walls have angles. Angles are where funny things happen. The mall swallowed us with music. Old pop songs played through broken speakers while mannequins turned their heads. The first floor had porcelain dolls with knives. The second floor had shoe stores where the shoes ran by themselves and kicked people in the face. The food court had a soup dragon. Nobody had a good explanation for the soup dragon. I killed it with 2 enchanted ladles. Do not judge me. One ladle stirred boiling broth into a shield. The other flung noodles like chains. My sword was stuck in an oven mimic, and my dagger was pinning its tongue to a menu board. Sometimes dual wield means 2 legendary blades. Sometimes it means beating a soup dragon with kitchen equipment, while Marcus yells that you are ruining formation. The crowd loved it. The system loved it more. Improvised dual weapon compatibility confirmed. Serena looked at me holding 2 glowing ladles. No. Yes. You are not keeping those. They chose me. Owen whispered, one of them is still dripping. Great weapons are allowed flaws. He fought floor by floor. In a jewelry store, crystal spiders reflected attacks through gemstones, so I shattered every display case with 1 blade while the other redirected reflections into each other. In a sports store, living mannequins copied our movements, so I held a baseball bat in one hand and a fencing foil in the other. Making my left and right sides use different styles until the copies crashed into shelves trying to imitate me. On the 4th floor, Marcus made his move. He abandoned weaker survivors in a toy store and sealed the exit with shadow chains, pretending the path had collapsed. Then he told the raid we had to keep moving. I heard the screams, so did Serena. Marcus said the timer mattered more. He was not completely wrong. That was the worst part. If we wasted too much time, thousands outside could die. Marcus used that truth like a shield for cowardice. I looked at the sealed toy store. I looked at the timer. I looked at my 2 hands. Normal people had to choose. I hate choosing. I threw my dagger to Owen. He fumbled it, screamed, and somehow caught it by the handle. Hold that up. Why? Because I need a doorway. Dual skill casting had one stupid detail I had been testing in secret. Blink Cut did not actually need the dagger in my hand. It needed the dagger to be part of my active weapon pattern. If Owen held it steady and did not panic, I could treat it like my left hand was standing over there. Owen panicked while standing still, which was close enough. My sword ignited. I cut Marcus's chains with flame edge, making them brittle. At the same time, blink cut triggered through the dagger in Owen's hands. Space folded between my right hand slash and the dagger point. A silver doorway ripped through the sealed entrance. The survivors crawled out. A wave of doll monsters came with them. My sword was cooling down. My dagger was in Owen's hands. Marcus smiled because he thought I had trapped myself. Then I picked up 2 foam toy swords from a display rack. The system, to its eternal shame, recognized them as weapons because the doll monsters believed they were weapons. Dual Wield accepted. The foam swords glowed. I moved into the doll wave with 2 squeaky blades and pure disrespect. Every hit made a ridiculous squeak. Every squeak triggered the doll's mimic reaction. The toy store became an orchestra of stupid violence. I squeaked early with my left hand and struck late with my right. I squeaked high and kicked low. I squeaked behind me and stabbed in front. Serena froze the floor, Owen threw my dagger back, and the survivors escaped. I finished the last doll by launching it into a shelf of plush bears, which exploded into stuffing and experience orbs. The raid stared. I raised 1 foam sword. This is what peak performance looks like. Even Serena laughed. Marcus did not. The boss waited in the cinema at the top floor. The theater doors opened into an impossible room, bigger inside than the mall. Rows of seats curved around a black screen the size of a building. On the screen, every person in the raid appeared as a shadow version of themselves, moving 1 second ahead of reality. Then the boss crawled out. It was a tall, faceless creature made of black film strips and white bones. Every time someone attacked, the screen showed their movement early, and the boss countered before they finished. Serena's ice spear appeared on screen before she cast it. The boss stepped aside. Marcus's chain appeared before it fired. The boss caught it and dragged him across the theater. Everyone's future was visible. Except mine. My body appeared as a blur split down the middle. My right side showed one action. My left side showed another. The projection stuttered, unable to decide which one was real. The boss tilted its faceless head. I tilted mine back. Yeah, I said, I annoy myself too. I charged. The screen showed my sword going high, so the boss blocked high. My dagger went low. The screen showed the dagger going low, so the boss shifted. My sword changed mid-swing. The screen split, flickered, rewound, and finally showed me tripping over a chair, which I had absolutely no intention of doing until I saw it. So I tripped. On purpose. The boss countered the future where I stayed balanced. I fell under its blade, kicked a bucket of old popcorn into the air, and ignited it with flame edge. Flaming popcorn filled the theater like tiny meteors. Owen shouted, I knew snacks would save us. I blinked between falling kernels, each silver flash cutting the boss's film body. Serena froze the flaming popcorn into burning ice chunks, which made no sense and looked amazing. Marcus tried to steal the final hit again. His shadow chain shot toward the core. This time I let it hit. The boss grabbed the chain and sent a countersignal back through it, wrapping Marcus in his own shadow. Film strips pinned him to the screen, showing every cowardly move he had made in the raid, abandoning survivors. Sending attackers after me, using people as bait. The safe zone criminal mark flared on his chest. Marcus tried to deny it, but the system did not care about speeches. 2 stone sentries emerged from the floor and dragged him away before the boss was even dead. With Marcus gone, the raid stopped pretending he was leading. Serena froze the boss's feet. Owen triggered traps under the theater seats, launching springs, wires, and one extremely angry soda machine into the boss's legs. I climbed the falling soda machine, jumped to a frozen popcorn cluster, and came down with sword and dagger crossed. The screen tried to show my future. I gave it to. Right hand flame edge. Left hand blink cut. The sword burned through the body. The dagger cut the distance to the core. I hit from the front and inside at the same time. Dual skill casting synchronization achieved. Boss defeated. Silverline Mall clear. The timer stopped with 11 minutes left. When we walked out, people cheered for Serena. They cheered for Owen when someone told them about the soda machine. Then they looked at me, soot-covered, holding a chipped sword, a dagger, and a foam toy sword I had kept for emotional support. The ranking board updated. My name jumped above Marcus. Then above Serena. Serena looked at the board, then at me. If you make a joke, I will freeze your shoes. I looked at the foam sword. I made the joke anyway. By the end of the second week, the city had changed from panic to competition. People built camps around safe zones. Fighters formed teams. The ranking board became a religion for people who liked feeling tall. Mine kept rising because I kept doing jobs nobody could explain. A library dungeon where the books bit people. I used one sword to cut pages and one dagger to stab the bookmarks controlling them. A flooded subway where invisible eels attacked through ripples. I dragged my sword through the water to create fake ripples while my dagger stabbed the real ones. A rooftop maze where gargoyles moved only when nobody watched. I polished my dagger until it reflected behind me and fought forward and backward at once. Owen called it paranoid swordsmanship. I was proud of the gargoyle pieces. But enemies got smarter, monsters used feints, bosses baited cooldowns. Human players learned that killing monsters was optional if they could steal rewards from people who did. That was how I met Cole. Cole was the first S-rank player I ever saw up close. He arrived from the Northern District with a sword longer than my body and a calm expression that made loud people quieter. No heavy armor, no cape, no speech. Just a black coat, one blade, and the kind of balance that made every step feel measured by a metronome. His skill was one strike. Simple name, terrifying result. He could compress all his power into one perfect slash. Monsters that survived raids died because Cole decided one line should exist through them. People gathered to watch him clear a gate near the river. The monster was a three-headed stone bull with lava leaking from its horns. It charged. Cole drew once. The bull split into 6 pieces. The crowd went wild. Then Cole looked at me. You are the dual wielder. I also do birthdays. You waste motion. I glanced at the 6 pieces of lava bowl. You saved too much. A few people gasped like I had slapped a church bell. Cole did not smile. Fight me when you reach a rank. I don't schedule beatings that far ahead. You will. He walked away and I hated how cool it looked. That night the first citywide event opened above the old stadium. Crimson Harvest begins at dawn. Survive 3 waves, defeat the field boss, rewards scale by contribution. The stadium became a pit of red grass. Ghostly silhouettes filled the seats. The scoreboard counted lives instead of points. Every safe zone sent fighters. Some came to protect people. Some came for rewards. Some came because being seen mattered more than being useful. Cole came, Serena came. Owen came after I told him not to, which was classic Owen. Marcus did not come because he was in a glowing cell under the station, probably organizing rats. First wave was red wolves. Hundreds of them poured from the tunnels, fast enough to blur. The first line panicked. Fire skills went wide. Ice walls rose too early. A lightning user hit 3 wolves and 4 allies. I stepped into the grass and let them surround me. Serena shouted my name like I had done something stupid, which was fair. The wolves lunged from 6 directions. My sword blocked the first. My dagger cut the second's nose. I kicked the third under the fourth. Flame edge burned the fifth. The 6th bit my sleeve and learned sleeves are removable. Then I started spinning. Not gracefully, more like a ceiling fan with unresolved issues. The sword made wide burning arcs. The dagger made short silver cuts between them. Wolves that dodged the sword entered the dagger path. Wolves that dodged the dagger entered the sword path. Wolves that jumped over both met my knee, which was not officially part of Dual Wield but had strong opinions. By the end of the wave, I had a pile of red smoke behind me and 1 wolf tooth stuck in my collar. Owen pointed, fashion. Battle damage. Fashion damage. Second wave was vine giants with glowing seed cores protected by thorn armor. Cutting the vines made them grow. Burning them released poison smoke. Freezing them slowed them, but the roots kept moving underground. Cole killed one with 1 strike, slicing through every layer and the core in 1 perfect line. Then he had to wait. That was the weakness. 1 strike was absolute, but the cooldown was heavy enough to hear. I ran up the next giant's arm. A root shot at my foot. My dagger pinned it. My sword kissed a vine with flame edge, making it recoil without releasing poison. I used the recoil as a springboard and launched myself onto the giant's chest. I could not cut through all the armor at once like Cole. So I made the armor open itself. Every vine plate moved toward pain. I struck left with the dagger. The plates shifted left. I burned right with the sword. The plates shifted right. I alternated faster until the armor could not decide which wound to protect. The chest opened for half a second. Half a second is rude to me. The dagger went in first. The sword followed. The seed burst. Cole watched me land. You waste motion, he said again. You keep saying waste like I'm not recycling it. The third wave turned the ghostly audience into copies of players. Serena's copy made black ice. Cole's copy had a jagged imitation of 1 strike. My copy stepped from the stands holding 2 shadow blades. For the first time, I felt what everyone else felt fighting me. Annoyed. The copy learned with every exchange. Sword high, dagger low. Dagger faint, sword reverse. It mirrored my spicy ghost, leaving a black flame afterimage that tried to bite me. The problem with a copy is that it wants to be you. The solution is to become something you are not dumb enough to remain. I stopped using my best patterns. I used my worst. I swung too wide, it copied. I overstepped, it copied. I threw my dagger straight up for no reason. It copied because copies are arrogant babies with no inner life. Then I corrected. My sword snapped back into proper guard. My left hand, empty now, caught its shadow dagger as it fell. My real dagger landed behind me, point first in the grass, exactly where I needed the blink cut anchor. I blinked behind the copy, holding its own shadow dagger in my left hand. For a moment, I was dual wielding myself. I cut its back with flame edge and stabbed its shadow dagger into its core. New skill principle recognized. Dual cooldown tracks unlocked. Before, using flame edge and blink cut together made both hands wait. Now each hand had its own clock. If the sword was cooling down, the dagger could still work. If the dagger was cooling down, the sword could still burn. If I alternated properly, the waiting shrank. The system had taken my worst habit and made it a lifestyle. I ran into the copies like the field owed me money. Sword flame, dagger blink, sword parry, dagger steal, sword cooldown, dagger active, dagger cooldown, sword back. I became a strobe light of bad news. Copies tried to track openings, but the openings belonged to one hand at a time, and the other hand kept filing complaints in blade form. Serena was trapped by black ice. I threw my dagger past her ear, blinked to it, cut the ice with my sword, and shoved her copy spell back into its chest. Cole's copy slashed over me. Serena froze its feet. Real Cole appeared beside me, one strike humming. "Move," he said. No, that was not bravery, it was math. The copy expected everyone to move away from Cole's slash. I stayed in the line and crossed my sword and dagger in front of me. Cole's one strike passed between them, compressed into a thinner path by my crossed blades. The slash became a needle of light. It pierced the copy's core without touching me. Cole's eyebrow moved, which for him was basically applause. Then the field boss rose. A massive scarecrow made of bones, red grass, and broken stadium lights climbed out of the scoreboard. Every time the scoreboard changed, gravity shifted. Up became sideways, down became a rumor. Fighters fell into the sky and landed back on the field like dropped toys. People panicked. I loved it immediately. In gravity flips, most people lose balance. Dual Wield taught me balance was overrated if you had enough points of contact. I stabbed my sword into the air because the air had decided to act like a wall. My dagger hooked a floating chunk of turf. I swung between directions, using each weapon as an anchor in whatever surface existed. The boss fired stadium lights like lasers. My sword reflected one. My dagger reflected another. The beams crossed and cut the boss's own arm. Owen's traps launched from the field. He had buried spring plates before the event because Owen treated every battlefield like it was rude for not already being prepared. When gravity changed, the springs fired sideways, launching broken seats across the field. I used them as stepping stones. But the scoreboard chest kept resetting damage. Every time we cracked it, the numbers rolled backward and the wound closed. The reset did not trigger from damage. It triggered from single-source damage. One person hit it, it rewound that person's impact. So I hit it as two people. I climbed the boss's spine while gravity spun like a drunk compass. My sword burned the left side of the scoreboard. My dagger blinked into the right side. The boss rewound the sword damage. My dagger hit during the rewind. The system treated it as a separate source, a second attacker living in the same body. The reset stuttered. I alternated faster, sword, dagger, fire, space, left, right. Each hit arrived before the boss could decide which version of me to erase. Serena froze the cracks open. Cole's one strike pierced the center. Owen's final trap launched me off a spring plate with enough force to make my soul complain. I crossed both weapons and drove them into the scoreboard. Dual critical window discovered. Field boss defeated. Crimson harvest complete. When I woke up, Owen was leaning over me with a dented helmet full of water. Do not pour that on me. He poured it anyway. My ranking jumped to higher rank potential, not S rank. The system was stingy, and apparently stabbing a scoreboard inside a gravity scarecrow was only mildly impressive, but the crowd did not care. They had watched me fight in 2 directions, on 3 surfaces, through 4 kinds of nonsense. Nobody called Dual Wield useless anymore. Now they called it unfair. That was better. Unfair meant they understood. For 3 days I trained dual critical windows. Every enemy had tiny moments where a perfect hit did more than damage, a muscle tightening before a swing, a mana pulse before a spell. Most fighters saw one critical window if they were lucky. I saw two. The sword could create one, the dagger could punish another, or the dagger could fake one and the sword could punish panic. Or both could hit separate windows at the same time and make the system sound like it was choking. I practiced on stone beetles outside the city wall. Their shells were almost impossible to crack unless you struck glowing seams exactly as they shifted. I stood in a circle of them and made them angry. Owen watched from a bus roof. This training method feels like a cry for help. It's efficient. You are surrounded by armored bugs. They are surrounded by me. Beetles charged. My sword tapped one shell seam, making it close. My dagger struck the opposite seam as it opened. Another beetle jumped. I parried with the dagger, not to block, but to make it turn midair. My sword entered the underbelly. A third sprayed acid. I cut the spray with flame edge, turned it into steam, blinked through the steam, and stabbed the glowing joint behind its head. By sunset, the bus was surrounded by loot cores. Then the ground shook. Black Tower had risen over the industrial district, made of iron beams and molten glass. Rotating blades lined its sides. Smoke poured from the top. Ironspire Foundry activated. Clear condition, destroy the heart furnace. Failure condition, molten wave reaches safe zones. Recommended rank, S. That word changed the air. S rank. Not a dungeon for hopefuls, a real disaster gate, the kind Cole was made for. He arrived with his long sword on his shoulder. Serena joined because she had the strongest ice in the city. Owen joined because he had apparently lost the ability to value his life. I joined because 12 hours was rude. Cole looked at me once. You are not S rank. Neither is the tower after I'm done with it. This is not a trick show. Good, I was running out of tricks for stadiums. Then the tower fired a molten chain across the road and vaporized a truck. We ran. Ironspire was heat, noise, and hatred. Conveyor belts moved through the air. Gears the size of houses turned in walls. Rivers of molten metal flowed upward through channels that ignored gravity. Monsters crawled out of furnace pits. Iron dogs, slag giants, bladewing birds, and spark gremlins that climbed into weapons and made them explode. I hated the gremlins instantly. One jumped at my sword. I pinned it with the dagger. Another leaped at the dagger. I kicked the first gremlin into the second, then used flame edge to heat both until they became angry coins. Owen picked one up with tongs. Do not tell me those are useful. They are extremely useful. They tried to eat my sword. So they have taste. Serena froze molten channels into temporary bridges. Cole cut through large monsters, each one strike opening a road. I handled everything clever. A bladewing bird dove at Serena while she cast. My dagger blinked to its shadow on the wall and cut the shadow's wing. The real wing snapped. A slag giant faked a slow punch and fired a fast elbow spike. My sword blocked the punch. My dagger cut the elbow before the spike launched. A conveyor belt dragged Owen toward a furnace. I stabbed my sword into the belt, hooked my dagger into his backpack, and blink cut swapped our positions. Owen landed safely. I landed on the belts. The furnace opened like a mouth. Small issue, I said. Serena yelled something unflattering. I ran toward the furnace because belts are faster when you stop arguing with them. At the last second, I threw my dagger into a chain above the furnace, blinked upward, and swung over the opening. My sword scraped the furnace lip, gathering molten metal along the blade. When I landed behind 6 iron dogs, flame edge turned the molten coating into a whip of orange light. I cut all 6 in one swing. Molten edge acquired. Duration 30 seconds. For 30 seconds, I became a workplace safety violation. My sword left molten arcs. My dagger blinked between sparks. I cut chains, melted armor, sliced a furnace pipe, and used the leaking metal stream as a curtain. Monsters lunged through, expecting me behind it. My left hand had already blinked to their side. My right hand followed with a molten greeting. Cole watched. For the first time, he did not say I wasted motion. That worried me more than the monsters. Halfway up the tower, we reached the Hall of Hammers. A narrow bridge crossed a pit of molten metal. Giant hammers slammed down in patterns. Some hit the bridge, some hit the air. Some hit nothing until you stepped where they wanted. Cole studied the timing. Serena studied the heat. Owen studied the bridge and went pale. There is no way across with everyone, Serena said. Cole lifted his sword. I can cut the hammers. You can cut one, she said. Maybe 2. Then your cooldown leaves you on a bridge full of regrets. They were both right. So I walked forward. Owen grabbed my sleeve. You always say you see it before doing something that makes my stomach quit. I need your traps. That is worse. Hammers were not random. They were music, heavy, ugly music. Left hammer on beat 1, right hammer on beat 3, air hammer on the silent count, bridge hammer after the false pause. At the far end, 3 locks opened for less than a second after each full pattern. A normal raid needed to disable the hammers. I needed them accurate. Owen threw me 3 trap discs. I ran onto the bridge. First hammer fell. My sword struck its side, changing the angle by a finger's width. It slammed beside me and launched the first trap disc forward. I blinked to the disc as it bounced, clearing 10 yards. The second hammer hit. My dagger stabbed its face, and I used the impact to swing under the bridge, upside down over molten metal. The air hammer passed through where my head had been. The third hammer fell late. There is always one late beat in a trap made to scare people. It exists to punish panic. If you wait for it, it becomes transportation. I crossed sword and dagger and caught the hammer's edge between them. The impact threw me backward, exactly toward the third trap disc, which Owen had thrown while making a noise I will generously call a battle cry. I blinked again. Now I was at the locks. 3 locks, 2 hands. A problem for someone with fewer bad ideas. My sword entered the first lock and turned with flame edge. My dagger entered the second and pulsed blink cut through the tumblers. The third lock rotated closed. I head-butted it. Do not judge me. The helmet I had stolen from an iron dog was sturdy. The third lock jammed open. Both blades crossed through the center seal. The gate opened. Owen collapsed. Serena crossed with the expression of someone trying not to ask why that worked. Cole stopped beside the dented lock. That was not swordsmanship. No, that was problem-solving with facial commitment. The top of Ironspire was a furnace cathedral without religion. Chains hung from the ceiling. Rivers of molten metal spiraled into a heart furnace, a huge engine with ribs of black iron and a core like a trapped sun. Round it moved the Guardian, a giant smith made of smoke and steel, with 4 arms and a hammer in each hand. The fight began badly. Cole cut off one arm, the Guardian welded it back on. Serena froze its legs. It shattered the ice by heating its own bones. Owen's traps tilted the platform, which helped until molten rivers shifted and nearly swallowed us. I went for the heart furnace. The Guardian stopped me with 2 hammers. My sword blocked one, my dagger blocked the other. That left 2 more. A hammer clipped my side and launched me into a chain. My ribs protested. The Guardian raised all 4 hammers, and I realized something simple. 2 hands could not block 4 arms. So I stopped blocking arms. I blocked decisions. Every attack began in the core furnace. Heat pulsed through a shoulder before the hammer moved. I did not need to react to 4 weapons. I needed to interrupt the order telling them where to go. My sword struck the heat pulse in its right shoulder. My dagger struck the pulse in its left hip. The upper hammer swung too early. The lower hammer swung too late. They collided. Dual critical window expanded. Cole attacked when the hammers crossed. One strike opened the Guardian's chest. Serena filled the wound with ice to hold it open. Owen threw a spark gremlin coin into the wound. It began eating the Guardian from inside. I jumped in after it. Inside the Guardian's chest, everything was heat and gears. My health dropped every second. The heart furnace was 10 feet ahead, protected by rotating iron ribs. My sword cut 1 rib, cooldown. My dagger blinked through the next, cooldown. My sword recovered faster because my dagger had acted. My dagger recovered faster because my sword had acted. Dual cooldown tracks spun like twin engines. Left-right fire space, cut, blink. The ribs opened. The heart furnace pulsed once. Behind me, the Guardian tried to close its chest and crush me. I threw the dagger into the core, not to damage it, but to anchor it. Then I blinked into the heart furnace. For a fraction of a second, I was inside the core of the tower, surrounded by molten light, with no air, no floor, and no plan a sane person would respect. My sword came down. Flame edge met the furnace's own heat and turned white. My dagger, already inside the core, released blink cut outward. One attack collapsed inward, one exploded outward. Dual core rupture achieved. Heart furnace destroyed. Ironspire foundry clear. The tower folded into itself and vanished, leaving a crater full of cooling metal and one confused street sign. My ranking updated. A rank. A rank plus. S rank candidate. Cole knew what that meant. He walked toward me while everyone backed away. You reached the door. Do I get a welcome basket? You get a duel. I just got cooked inside a furnace. Tomorrow. Owen stared after him. I think he likes you. That is how serious people flirt with murder. Duel drew more people than the stadium event, which was ridiculous because the stadium involved a gravity scarecrow trying to kill everyone. The safe zone selected a cracked stone arena by the river. No killing. Fight until surrender or system stoppage. Cole stood at one end with one sword. I stood at the other with a cracked sword and dagger. The countdown ended. Cole drew. I almost lost immediately. His first slash was not one strike. It was normal, which from Cole meant it nearly removed my arm. I blocked with the sword, but the force drove me sideways. His second cut chased the exact angle my dodge wanted. I caught it with the dagger and felt my wrist go numb. Cole did not need his big skill to be terrifying. He walked me backward with small cuts, no wasted movement, no opening. Every slash asked one question with one correct answer. I hated how clean it was. So I made it dirty. I kicked dust into his coat. It did nothing. I threw my dagger at his foot. He tapped it aside. I used blink cut to appear behind it. He had already turned. His sword stopped at my neck. You are fast, he said, but you move for attention. I smiled. No, I move because people watch the loud hand. His eyes flicked down. My sword hand had been loud. Flames, sparks, wide blocks, dramatic footwork. My dagger had been quieter. Every time he tapped it aside, I had left tiny silver cuts in the stone, blink cut marks. Not enough to teleport far, enough to make space slippery. I triggered all of them. The arena bent. Cole's perfect distance became imperfect for the first time. His blade, resting at my neck, shifted a finger too far. My dagger touched his wrist. My sword touched his ribs. The crowd exploded. Cole stepped back. Then he used one strike. There was no dramatic charge. One moment his sword was at his side. The next, the arena had a line of white light through it, and my body understood that line was death. I crossed both weapons. Bad idea. The slash hit, my sword cracked, my dagger screamed. The force launched me into the barrier. My health dropped into red. You cannot block it, Cole said. I noticed. You should surrender. He was right. I could not block one strike. I could not outrun it. The slash was too fast, too clean, too complete. So I made him miss on purpose. The second one strike came after 3 exchanges. I threw my sword into it. The blade shattered instantly. But the fragments did not vanish. Each shard carried a spark of flame edge. My dagger blinked between shards, not moving my body, but pulling the line of space around them. One strike did not stop. It bent. A perfect slash hates imperfect space. The line curved past my shoulder and cut the barrier behind me. My left hand was empty. My right held only the broken hilt. Cole's eyes widened. I lunged. He blocked the dagger that was no longer in my hand, because for half a second his perfect reading expected the old pattern. My left hand grabbed his sleeve. My right hand drove the broken sword hilt into his chest, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough for the system to count a clean hit. Duel complete. Winner, Jace. I fell on my back because winning while injured is still being injured. Cole stood over me. You broke your sword. I was done with it anyway. You bent one strike. I filed a complaint with geometry. Cole offered me a hand. I took it. The ranking board updated. S rank. The same people who had laughed at Dual Wield stared like the skill had always sounded legendary. That is how crowds work. They do not remember being wrong. They remember being present when someone else became right. System dropped my dual reward, twinbound blades, a pair of black and silver weapons that shifted between sword and dagger length depending on which hand held them. They were ridiculous, beautiful. They hummed when I touched them, like they already knew both my hands were trouble. Cole nodded. Now you look like an S rank. I spun one blade and almost dropped it because my wrist hurt. Always did. Serena coughed. Owen laughed until he wheezed. For a while things were good, not peaceful. Peace had packed a bag and left the planet. But good, safe zones expanded. Gangs got crushed or dragged into cells after robbing the wrong teams. Marcus stayed locked up, and every time I passed, he glared through the blue bars like he was trying to invent murder with eye contact. I waved every time. Then the prison under the bus station broke. Not because the system targeted me, not because the world changed for my convenience, because people are stupid, greedy, and allergic to learning. A group of criminals tried to free their friends during a monster surge. They thought the sentries would be busy. They thought blue cells were just cages. They were wronged. Breaking a cell did not free prisoners. It released everything the cell had been suppressing. Criminal marks, rage buffs, stolen skills, cursed loot, all of it erupted. The prison level cracked open, and marked players crawled out wrapped in red-black energy. At their center was Marcus. He looked thinner, meaner. His shadow chains had become barbed, covered in red cracks from all the crime marks he had absorbed. The safe zone alarm rang. I ran toward it. Marcus stood in the street with chains spreading into buildings, cars, lamp posts, and the ground. Each chain held someone by their shadow. If they moved, the chains tightened. If fighters attacked, Marcus pulled civilians into the path. Classic Marcus, still allergic to fair fights. He saw me and laughed, still carrying 2 blades. Still hiding behind other people. I learned from you, use the battlefield. That annoyed me because he was almost right, and I hate when villains accidentally pay attention. He snapped his fingers. Shadows rose, shaped like chained fighters. Marked criminals charged from alleys. I could not just cut them down. Some were still alive. Civilians were trapped. Sentries were fighting monsters 2 blocks away. Marcus had picked the moment well. Too bad he picked me too. I threw my left blade straight into the air. Everyone looked up. My right hand moved. Starfire arc cut the first wave of shadow chains near the ground, not through the hostages' shadows, but through anchors attached to objects. The chains recoiled. Civilians stumbled free. Marcus pulled harder. My left blade fell. A rift stepped to it, appearing above Marcus. He raised chains to skewer me. I did not attack him. I kicked a streetlight. It snapped and fell, casting a huge moving shadow across the road. Marcus's chains, hungry for shadows, grabbed it automatically. For one glorious second, he chained himself to a falling streetlight. It dragged him sideways into a parked car. Owen arrived wheezing with a backpack full of trap discs. I hate stairs. This is a street. I hated them on the way here. He threw trap discs in a circle. Serena arrived behind him, ice spreading under her boots. Cole appeared on a rooftop, looking down at Marcus like he had found dirt on a clean blade. Marcus changed tactics. His chains stabbed into the marked criminals. They screamed as their shadows merged into a huge many-armed beast behind him, made of prisoners, monster rage, and every bad choice in a 10-block radius. The system named it Red Chain Abomination. That was a lot of syllables for Marcus, made himself uglier. Every time we damaged the monster, pain spread to the prisoners trapped inside it. Killing it outright might kill them too. Marcus knew that. His voice echoed, "You like saving people, save them now." The abomination swung 20 chain arms at me. I ran toward it. First arms crashed down. I stepped between links, sword extended right, dagger extended left. Starfire burned chain joints without cutting deep. Rift step moved me from one mark to another. I was not attacking the monster, I was mapping it. Every prisoner shadow had a pulse. Every chain connected back to Marcus through a different route. If I cut randomly, people got hurt. If I followed the pulses, I could separate them. There were too many. My brain split under the pressure. Right hand tracking external attacks, left hand tracking internal chains, sword defending my body, dagger freeing shadows, 2 battles at once, both too fast for one mind. Then the next evolution hit. Dual consciousness combat unlocked. For a heartbeat, the world tore in half. My right eye saw arms, debris, Cole's cooldown, Serena's ice lines. My left eye saw shadows, chain pulses, hostage links, Marcus's core, Owen's trap triggers glowing under the ground. I did not become 2 people. I became 1 person with 2 control rooms. It felt impossible. It felt like coming home. Right side defend. Left side steal. My sword spun in wide arcs, burning chain arms before they crushed the street. My dagger flicked through shadow links, cutting prisoners free 1 pulse at a time. A spear came from above. Right side blocked. A hostage link tightened below. Left side severed. Marcus shot chains at Owen. Right side redirected them into a wall. Left side used the wall shadow to trace them back. Serena froze freed shadows so they could not be pulled in again. Cole cut reattachment chains when I exposed them. Owen triggered trap discs under each freed prisoner, launching them out of danger in the least gentle rescue imaginable. People flew across the street screaming. They landed alive. Owen shouted, "Rescue velocity." Serena shouted, "Stop naming crimes." As more prisoners broke free, Marcus panicked and pulled all remaining chains into himself. The monster shrank into dense red chain armor around his body. He stood in the crater, eyes glowing, chains whipping from his back like angry tails. "Now you fight me," he snarled. I landed in front of him. "No, now you get processed." He attacked with everything, red chains from the ground, barbed chains from the air, shadow hooks from behind. Dual consciousness let me move through them. My right hand parried what could kill me. My left hand cut what could trap me. I used his chains as rails, making him chase two rhythms at once. Marcus had power, rage, a terrifying skill. What he did not have was the ability to stop being predictable. Every chain wanted control. Every attack tried to bind before it struck. Every feint had a leash. I cut the leashes first, then I cut the pride. I let one chain wrap my right wrist. Marcus smiled. My left hand cut the shadow under his foot. The chain on my wrist went slack because his balance broke. I pulled him forward with his own binding. My sword hilt smashed his nose. My dagger pinned his sleeve to a broken street sign. He tried to fire chains from his back. Serena froze them midair. Cole's one strike cut the red armor open without touching flesh. I stepped in. Both blades crossed at Marcus's throat. The criminal mark on his chest flared brighter than a lantern. For the first time, Marcus had nobody left to stand behind. I leaned close. Organize this. The stone sentries took him. This time they dragged him into a deeper blue prison under the central safe zone. Marcus fought, screamed, chained the street, chained the air, chained his own shadow. The sentries kept walking. They pulled him down into the light, and the prison sealed with a sound like a door closing underwater. No speech, no trial, no paperwork, just consequences. The crowd was too shaken to cheer. That was fine. Some victories should be quiet long enough for people to breathe. The city changed after Marcus fell, not because everyone became good. That would be too easy, but predators like easy darkness. They like corners, confusion, fear, crowds that look away. I had dragged one of the biggest predators into the light and let everyone watch the light bite back. After that, smaller predators got quieter. For about 4 days. Then a gate made of white bone rose from the river. Bonewake Labyrinth opened. Clear condition, defeat the Marrow Saint. Recommended rank, multiple S-rank players. Failure condition, river corruption reaches all connected safe zones. River ran through the city. If corruption spread, every safe zone using that water would fall. Cole looked at the floating maze of ribs and skulls and said one word. Bad. When Cole uses an adjective, you listen. We entered as a small raid, Serena for control, Cole for execution, Owen for traps and emergency nonsense, me for whatever category involved stabbing architecture. The entrance bridge was made of spine bones. Each step made the bones sing. Inside, the walls were ribs taller than houses. The floor was slick bone. The air smelled like rain and old teeth. A lesser person might have found it unsettling. I found it personally rude. First trap fired bone arrows from both sides. Serena raised ice shields. Cole cut a path. I spun both twin-bone blades into dagger form and knocked arrows into each other midair. Every deflection changed the sound under our feet. Owen noticed first. The floor is listening. That was not comforting. Bonewake reacted to rhythm. Every step, block, strike, and breath fed the maze a pattern. Then the maze answered with traps that matched it. Slow teams got crushing walls. Fast teams got arrow storms. Magic-heavy teams got mono-eating skulls. Against me, the maze hesitated. 2 weapons meant 2 rhythms. Dual consciousness meant 2 intentions. My right foot tapped one tempo. My left blade cut another. My sword form rang low. My dagger form rang high. The floor tried to predict me and produced a trap that slammed into its own wall. Owen stared at the crushed spikes. You confused a building. It started it. Deeper in, the maze separated us. Cole was pushed left. Serena and Owen were pushed right. I dropped through a throat-shaped tunnel into a chamber full of hanging skull bells. The bells rang. Every sound became an attack. A low note pressed me to the floor. A high note cut my cheek. A broken chime made my vision double. A skeletal musician crawled from the wall with 6 arms and no audience except me, which was about to become its final career mistake. I could not block sound. So I blocked timing. Every bell had to move before it rang. Every finger had to twitch. My right eye tracked the arms. My left eye tracked the bell mouths. Right hand cut fingers. Left hand stabbed bell clappers. The musician changed tempo. I changed distance. It rang 3 bells at once. My sword became long and swept across 2. My dagger stayed short and plugged the 3rd bell mouth with the skull of a smaller bell I had cut loose. The sound came out wrong. The boss staggered. I struck a bell with the flat of my sword, making a low note that canceled pressure. I stabbed another bell with the dagger, making a sharp note that reflected a cutting wave back. The musician played attacks. I played corrections. It tried a killing chord. I sliced 3 bell chains and let the skull bells fall in sequence, each one ringing a note that turned the chord inside out. I stood in the chamber with both blades raised like conducting batons. You are off beat. Then I crossed the blades through the final bell and sent every stored sound wave back into the musician. Chamber Guardian defeated. Dual consciousness combat stabilized. I climbed out and found Serena and Owen fighting a river of bone eels. Serena had made an ice dome, but the eels chewed through. Owen had built a trap that launched eels into other eels, which was useful and disgusting. I landed on the dome and stabbed both blades through the ice. Rift marks spread across the surface. I flashed wherever an eel broke through. Sword became spear length, dagger became hook length. I cut heads, hooked tails, threw eels into Serena's freezing lines, and used one eel as a whip against another, because the apocalypse had ruined my standards. Owen shouted, "Is that allowed?" It had a handle. It was a spine. Natural handle. Marrow Saint waited at the center, floating inside a cathedral-sized skull over the river. It was a pale, many-winged skeleton wrapped in water, with a staff made of linked spines and a glowing marrow core in its chest. Black corruption poured from the core into the river. The fight began before we entered. Every bone in the chamber became a weapon. Ribs fired like spears, teeth rained from the ceiling, jawbones snapped from the floor. Serena's ice walls were pierced. Cole's slash cut the staff in half, but it reformed. Owen's traps were swallowed before they activated. Then the saint copied our bones. Skeletons stepped from the floor wearing our shapes. One with a long sword faced Cole, one with ice ribs faced Serena, one with trap discs in its arms faced Owen, two faced me. Not one copy with two weapons. Two separate copies, one held my right hand blade style, the other held my left hand blade style. For the first time, the dungeon understood the worst possible interpretation of me. My right side fought the sword skeleton, my left side fought the dagger skeleton. They did not mirror me, they specialized. The sword skeleton pressed with power. The dagger skeleton stayed low, cutting marks in the floor. It was like being judged by both halves of my personality, and both halves were disappointed. I needed them together. So I made them hate each other. The sword skeleton swung at my head. I ducked toward the dagger skeleton. It stabbed at my ribs. I twisted, and the sword skeleton's arc cut its arm off. The dagger skeleton blinked behind me. I stepped into the sword skeleton's guard, and the dagger's strike hit its spine. They adjusted. Good. Adjustments take time. I made both twin-bound blades long, breaking my usual pattern. Both skeletons hesitated. Then I snapped the left blade short again and threw it between them. Rift step pulled me through the gap. I grabbed the sword skeleton's wrist, kicked the dagger skeleton's knee, and crossed their weapons into each other's cores. They shattered together. Dual critical window mastered. We converged on the saint. Every time we attacked the core, the saint moved damage into the river, corrupting it faster. Cole could destroy it, but the backlash might poison every safe zone. Serena could freeze the river, but not while defending from endless bones. Owen could redirect flow with traps, but he needed time. So I became time. I leaped into the air, carved rift marks along falling teeth, and moved around the saint faster than it could track. Sword strike to wing, dagger cut to staff, sword fake to core, dagger reel to rib. Every hit forced the saint to choose late. Right hands threatened the core. Left hand threatened the staff. Right foot kicked a bone spear into its wing joint. Left blade cut the water stream. Serena used those seconds to freeze the river below in layers. Owen planted trap discs along the frozen channels. Cole stood still, gathering one strike until the air bent around his blade. The saint turned all bones toward Cole. I threw both blades, one to each wing, then Rift stepped between them across the saint's body. My hands caught both weapons at the top of the arc. Dual consciousness narrowed into one command. Open! Both blades stabbed the saint's chest from opposite sides and pulled the ribs apart. Cole released one strike. The slash entered the exposed core. Serena froze the backlash. Owen's traps redirected the corrupted flow into empty bone chambers that collapsed. The river flashed black, then blue. Bonewake labyrinth clear. The maze dissolved into harmless white dust. The river ran clean. We stood inside the fading skull, exhausted and covered in bone powder. Owen sneezed. A tiny skull fell off his shoulder. I hate this place. The ranking board appeared. Cole S rank. Serena S rank candidate. Owen support rank A+. Jace S rank. Then my line flickered. Unique skill evolution available. Twin execution mode conditions partially met. Partially met. That is system language for not yet, but soon enough to ruin your sleep. I did not tell the others. The next disaster came from Fame. After Bonewake, players from other districts arrived to see the dual wielder. Some wanted training, some wanted recruitment. Some wanted to challenge me because apparently getting folded in public was a dream people traveled for. Most were harmless. A few were not. A group of high-ranked players from the East entered our safe zone, wearing matching red scarves and carrying too many weapons to be friendly. Their leader announced that our district had been hoarding rewards and that S-rank players should share responsibility by handing over resources. That was robbery with posture. Cole told them to leave. Serena told them to leave colder. Owen hid behind a snack cart and started placing traps under it. I stepped forward. The red scarf leader smirked. I heard you win with tricks. Only against people who fall for them. He spread his fighters outside the lantern circle, careful not to trigger sentries. They wanted me to strike first outside the circle, then overwhelm me and call it a duel. So I stood still. They insulted me. They insulted Owen, which was rude but understandable because he was hiding behind snacks. They insulted Serena, which made the air colder. They insulted Cole, which did nothing because Cole processed insults like weather. A fire user flicked a tiny flame at my coat, not enough to count as an attack, just harassment. My left blade moved. Not to strike him. To cut the flame in half and redirect it into a hanging banner above the safe zone boundary. The banner burned through, dropped onto a stack of monster bait crates, and released the smell of fresh blood. Every minor monster nearby turned toward us. Owen peeked over the snack cart. That was the bait banner. I know. That was for emergencies. This is an emergency. They are annoying. Monsters flooded the street. The red scarf players panicked because they were spread outside the lantern circle. Now they had to fight. They could not retreat without looking weak, and they could not attack us without being marked in front of witnesses. So they fought monsters. I helped, of course. I helped in a way that made them regret arriving. A claw monster lunged at a red scarf fighter. I cut its leg so it stumbled, making the fighter look heroic when he killed it. Then I kicked the corpse into two more enemies, forcing their line to split. Serena froze escape routes enough to protect civilians, but not enough to make life easy for our visitors. Cole killed anything truly dangerous. Owen's snack cart trap activated. The cart launched into the air, unfolded into a spinning cage, caught 4 monsters, and landed in front of the red scarf leader. He screamed. I appeared beside him. Careful, responsibility is heavy. By the end of the surge, the red scarf group had spent half their potions, broken several weapons, and gained nothing except humility and mysterious snack stains. The leader finally snapped and swung at me inside the lantern circle. The sentries rose. I did not even block. My left blade gently guided his sword farther forward so the system recorded it clearly. My right blade cut his belt, dropping his stolen loot pouch at his feet. The sentries grabbed him. Others interfered, got marked, and joined him in the blue light parade to the cells. Owen watched them go. Did we just defeat a gang with customer service energy? They came for shared responsibility. Serena looked at the loot pouch. Return that. I was going to. To its owners. I was mostly going to. Weeks passed, each gate crazier than the last. A clock tower where every missed second became a monster. A museum where paintings crawled out and demanded dramatic deaths. A highway dungeon where cars drove themselves and tried to run people over in reverse. I kept climbing, adapting, turning problems into weapons and weapons into jokes sharp enough to kill. But twin execution mode stayed locked. The system showed progress after certain fights. Conditions partially met. Conditions nearly met. Conditions unstable. That last one was rude. I tried forcing it. I fought 2 bosses at once in a split dungeon, 1 acid and 1 glass. Nothing. I defeated an arena champion by disarming him with my left blade while my right carved a smiley face into his shield. Still nothing. It was not about power. It was not about speed. It was about execution. 2 separate decisions ending 2 separate threats at the same exact moment. Not 1 body with 2 weapons. 2 characters in 1 body. I did not understand until the hollow train arrived. At midnight, the abandoned station lit green, and a train with no driver pulled in from a tunnel that had not existed before. Its windows were black, its doors opened by themselves. Smoke passengers sat perfectly still inside. Hollow train departure in 10 minutes. Clear condition, stop the conductor. Failure condition, train reaches final stop. Recommended rank, S. We boarded because of course we did. Inside, every car had a rule. In the first, your reflection attacked if you looked at the windows. In the second, gravity pulled toward the ceiling whenever lights flickered. In the third, smoke passengers whispered your worst mistake until your skill control slipped. Owen covered his ears and yelled sandwich recipes to drown them out. It worked better than it should have. The fifth car had people. Not real people, but copies made from passengers the train had taken before. They cried, begged, and asked us not to leave. Some might have been echoes, some were bait. The train did not care. It wanted hesitation. An echo grabbed my sleeve. I looked at its hand. No shadow. Not a person, not even a trapped soul. A hook shaped like mercy. My left blade cut the wrist. My right blade cut the illusion behind it. The echo dissolved, revealing a jaw trap big enough to bite a person in half. The car attacked. Seats folded into teeth. Handrails became snakes. Luggage racks dropped chains. I moved through it with both blades low, cutting lies and metal together. Serena froze the floor. Cole sliced open the ceiling to stop chains. Owen set traps under seats while apologizing to any furniture that was not evil. The conductor waited in the engine. Tall, thin, faceless, wearing black smoke like a uniform. A whistle hung from its neck, and a lantern burned in its chest. The tracks ahead stretched through a green tunnel toward a station full of open hands. The conductor lifted one finger. Every car behind us began collapsing. Cole attacked first. One strike cut the conductor in half. The halves rejoined on opposite sides. Serena froze one half, the other rang the whistle, and the ice aged into dust. Owen threw a trap under the lantern. The floor swallowed it. The conductor could split damage across the train. To kill it, we had to destroy the lantern and stop the engine at the same time. 2 threats, 2 endings. Twin execution mode stirred. The conductor split into 2 bodies. One guarded the lantern, one guarded the brake lever, one fast, one slow. Attack one, the other advanced the train. Attack the other, the lantern healed both. Cole could destroy one. Serena could lock one down. But both had to end together. I stepped forward. Cover the cars. Cole frowned. You cannot take both. I am not taking both. My right blade became a sword. My left became a dagger. I am sending one of me to each. The fight became the hardest thing I had ever done. Right side faced the lantern conductor, fast and full of smoke blades. Left side faced the brake conductor, slow and time-lagged. My right I saw flashes. My left I saw delays. My right blade chased speed with power. My left blade punished slowness with precision. The final station grew closer. Owen shouted the distance. Serena froze collapsing cars. Cole cut falling debris. I felt twin execution waiting, not for rage, not for a scream, but for agreement. Both halves of me had to decide at once. The lantern conductor exposed its chest while preparing to heal. The brake conductor exposed its wrist while reaching for the lever. 2 critical windows. Too far apart. I threw the sword at the lantern. I threw the dagger at the brake. Both conductors reacted correctly. The lantern dodged, the brake blocked. That was fine. The weapons were not the attack. I riff stepped to the sword first, appearing beside the lantern conductor, but only my right hand grabbed it. My left stayed mentally anchored to the dagger mark near the brake. Dual consciousness stretched until my body felt like a bridge about to snap. Right side cut the lantern chain. Left side triggered rift step through the dagger without moving my whole body, yanking my balance just enough to dodge the brake conductor's palm. Then both blades returned to my hands from opposite directions. Twin execution mode available. Time slowed. Not for the world. For me, the right-hand view narrowed to the lantern core. The left-hand view narrowed to the brake wrist. My hands felt like 2 separate players, receiving one command. Execute. My right blade pierced the lantern core. My left blade severed the brake wrist and slammed the lever down. Same moment. Same breath. 2 endings. Twin execution mode activated. The conductor shattered into green glass. The train screamed, slammed its brakes, and stopped with the front wheels hanging over the edge of the final station. Hands reached from green fog inches away from the windshield, grasping at nothing. Then the tunnel collapsed into light. Hollow train clear. We stumbled onto the original platform at dawn. No crowd, no cheers, just 4 exhausted idiots stepping off a ghost train like commuters from hell. Owen kissed the platform. Serena sat on a bench and stared at the sky. Cole looked at me. You did it. I looked at my hands. They were steady. That scared me more than when they shook. Twin execution mode was not just a finishing move. It was a promise that if I could create 2 perfect endings, the system would let both happen, against 2 enemies, against one enemy with 2 cores. against a battlefield with two disasters. It was beautiful, ridiculous, and exactly the kind of thing that would get me into deeper trouble. That should have been the part where I rested. I even made a serious plan called sleep until gravity apologized. The plan lasted 12 minutes. Siren rang from the south side safe zone, not the monster siren, not the gate siren, but the ugly metal bell people only used when humans were being stupid on purpose. Monsters had excuses. They crawled out of nightmare portals and tried to eat civilization because that was apparently their job. People had choices, which somehow made them more annoying. Owen looked at me from the bench, where he was trying to sleep inside a pile of his own trap belts. "No," he said. "I did not say anything. You had the face." "What face?" "The face that ruins my afternoon." Serena stood from the platform bench, ice already crawling around her fingers. Cole opened one eye from where he leaned against a cracked pillar like a sleeping statue with emotional problems. The bell rang again. Southside safe zone lantern under attack. Threat type player raid. I sighed so hard my ribs hurt. Of course, we had just cleared a ghost train that tried to feed us to a fog station, and some criminals looked at the calendar of disasters and decided this was the perfect moment to rob refugees. The Southside lantern was one of the few reasons people could sleep. Monsters hated its light. Weak gates flickered away from it. Children hid under it during night waves. Take that lantern and the entire district became bait. The raiders knew that. That was why I smiled. Evil people always thought being cruel made them smart. They saw kindness as weakness, fear as control, mercy as a door they could kick open. But people like that had one beautiful flaw. They could not resist attacking anyone who looked helpless. So I made myself look very helpless. By the time we reached the south side, smoke covered the street. The lantern tower stood in the center of a cracked plaza, a 12-story metal frame with a glowing crystal heart at the top. Round it, dozens of civilians hid behind overturned stalls, while a group of raiders circled the base, laughing and tossing fire at anyone who tried to get close. They were not strong enough to clear real gates, but they had stolen enough miner skills to become dangerous to normal people. Flame ropes, shadow hooks, needle darts. One had a whistle that made nearby knees buckle for 3 seconds. Another could turn his skin into glass shards. None of them had armor. They wore matching red scarves, because apparently if you chose crime during the apocalypse, you still needed branding. Your leader stood on the lantern stairs with 2 curved knives and a smug smile that looked like it had survived entirely on bad decisions. He was forcing a group of fighters to kneel. "Listen up," he shouted. "You want protection, you pay. You want the lantern to keep shining, you pay. Anybody tries to be a hero, we crack the crystal and let the night mobs come clean this place out." A few people looked toward me as I stepped from the smoke. Then the raiders looked too. I made sure they saw the limp in my walk, the torn sleeve, the dried blood from the hollow train, the way one blade dragged on the ground like my arm barely worked. The leader laughed. I loved when they laughed early. It saved time later. "You lost, little sword boy?" he asked. "Constantly." His eyes dropped to my weapons, Dual Wield, that useless circus skill. There it was, the old song, the greatest hit. I almost missed it. A raider with the whistle stepped forward, his cheeks puffed. I let him blow. The sound hit my legs like invisible hands. My knees loosened, and I dropped toward the ground. The raiders cheered. My right hand moved first. While my knees were still falling, my sword spun out low and clipped the whistle in half. My left hand threw the dagger at the raider's shadow. Rift mark, step, grab, knee to the stomach. Catch the broken whistle before it hit the ground. I landed behind him while he was still trying to understand why his lungs were suddenly holding a meeting with my knee. The plaza went quiet. I looked at the leader. "Does this whistle work on bad taste?" Owen groaned from the smoke. "Do not encourage yourself." The leader's smile twitched. He snapped his fingers. 12 raiders attacked at once. Good. I did not move forward. I moved wrong. People expected a dual wielder to rush, to cross blades, to spin like a stage performer begging for applause. So I stumbled left, let one fire rope wrap my sword arm, and let a shadow hook catch my dagger wrist. The raiders pulled in opposite directions. For half a second I looked trapped. For half a second they thought they had won. That half second was expensive. Dual cooldown tracks activated. Right hand used flame edge. The fire rope burned from the inside out and snapped back into the caster's face. Left hand used blink cut. The shadow hook became my path, and my dagger traveled along it like a silver fish through black water. I appeared in front of the shadow caster. My sword was still on the other side of the plaza. My dagger tapped his forehead. The flat of my blade cracked his skill focus without cutting skin. His shadow collapsed around his ankles like spilled ink. He fell over, tied by his own darkness. On the right side, my sword returned from the burned rope spin and slapped the firecaster with the back edge. He flew into 3 of his friends, all of them landing in a cart full of emergency cabbages. No one knew why the south side stored that many cabbages. I chose not to question blessings. Serena moved next. She did not charge. She froze the plaza edges first, quiet and clean, sealing escape routes under a thin glassy layer of ice. Cole walked through the smoke with his sword still sheathed. The raiders saw him and backed away anyway. Some people did not need to swing to be a warning. Owen vanished into an alley. That was the part that made the leader nervous. Good instincts. Kill the lantern, the leader shouted. 3 raiders turned toward the tower base. One raised a hammer glowing with crackling black light. Not armor, not a shield, just a tool made ugly. I threw my dagger at the hammer. The raider twisted aside. The dagger missed. He grinned. Then the dagger hit the lantern frame behind him and left a rift mark. I stepped to it, came out above his shoulder, planted one boot on the hammer head, and used his own swing like an elevator. My sword hooked the lantern rail. My body swung around the frame, and my dagger returned to my hand as I passed him. I did not cut him. I cut the straps holding his boots. He tried to swing again and launched himself out of both shoes, slid across Serena's ice, and slammed into the cabbage cart so hard cabbages achieved flight. Owen shouted from the alley. I knew those would matter. You did not know that, Serena yelled. I believed in vegetables. The leader stopped laughing. That was always my favorite sound. He pointed both knives at the civilians. Back off or I start carving hostages. The plaza froze in a different way. Not ice. Fear. Little kid was hiding behind a broken snack stand, holding a stuffed rabbit with one missing ear. A raider grabbed the kid's shoulder and yanked him into the open. For a moment, all the jokes in my head died. My hands relaxed. The leader mistook that for surrender. Drop the weapons. I looked at the kid. His eyes were huge, but he did not cry. Brave little guy. Terrible survival instinct, but brave. I dropped both blades. They hit the ground with a clean metal sound. The leader grinned again. Behind him, Owen's alley trap clicked. See, the problem with hostage takers is they always stare at the person they think they are controlling. They forget everyone else on the board. They forget the floor, the walls, the cabbage cart, the lantern light. The exact angle between a broken whistle, a shadow hook, and a metal street sign Owen had quietly turned into a spring-loaded insult. A trap disc slid under the leader's heel. He looked down. Too late. The disc launched him upward. Not high, just enough. Serena froze the air around his knives, locking his wrists apart. Cole appeared beside the kid and moved him behind a wall with one calm step. I kicked both blades up from the ground with my heels. The sword spun into my right hand. The dagger spun into my left. The leader was still in midair when I crossed under him. Right blade cut the red scarf off his neck. Left blade cut the belt pouch full of stolen crystals. Right pommel hit his ribs. Left pommel hit his wrist. He hit the ground without knives, without loot, without breath, and with exactly enough consciousness to hear everyone laughing at him instead. Beautiful symmetry. The remaining raiders tried to run. Serena's ice said no. Cole's stare said absolutely not. Owen's trap said surprise, ankle jail. I walked through the plaza collecting weapons as the raiders tripped, slid, stuck, spun, and slammed into carefully placed non-lethal surfaces. The strongest one, the glass-skin raider, charged me with shards growing from his arms. I let him get close. He wanted me to attack. His skin reflected damage. Any blade hit would send force back into my wrist. So my sword attacked his reflection in a shop window. His skill reacted to the fake hit, hardening the wrong side of his body. My dagger tapped the soft spot behind his knee. He folded. My sword came back and struck the ground beside his ear. The crack in the pavement made him stop moving. Stay, I said. He stayed. By the time the safe zone guards arrived, every raider was wrapped in shadow rope, ice, trap wire, or cabbage netting. Leader was hanging upside down from the lantern frame by his own red scarf, very much alive and very much reconsidering his career path. The kid with the rabbit walked up to me. You dropped your swords on purpose. Yep, that was dumb. It worked. That makes it worse. I had no defense. The guards marched the raiders toward the holding cells near the old courthouse. No speeches, no trials in the street, no dramatic executions. Just doors, locks, and a lot of angry people clapping as the criminals were dragged away. The leader glared at me while the guards shoved him forward. You think you won, people like us always come back. I pointed at the lantern. Then come back when I am napping, it is only fair. Owen leaned close. Please do not schedule crimes around your sleep. I am trying to create work-life balance. Serena checked the lantern crystal. It is cracked. That killed the mood fast. Raiders had not broken it completely, but a black line ran through the lower edge. The glow flickered once every few seconds. Each flicker made the shadows in the side streets stretch longer than they should. Cole looked toward the dark alleys. Night wave. He was right. Lantern's weakness had been enough. Somewhere beyond the safe zone, monsters noticed. Not a gate boss, not a planned raid. Natural night wave, the kind that came when too many monsters gathered around light and hunger in the same place. The system message appeared above the plaza. Southside lantern integrity unstable. Night wave arrival in 9 minutes. Clear condition, protect lantern until repair completes. Repair source required. Recommended rank, a rank defense party. Owen stared at the cracked crystal. I can repair the frame, maybe redirect power, maybe make it flash bright enough to buy time, but I need a clean crystal source. Serena pointed down the street. There is a supply vault under the arcade district. Of course there is, I said, because the universe enjoys making me run back to places where I was embarrassing. Cole drew his sword. I will hold here. Serena nodded. I stay too. Ice wall buys time. Owen lifted one hand. I need to not die while repairing, which is usually my favorite hobby. That meant I had to get the crystal. Alone. 9 minutes. The arcade district was 6 blocks away, through alleys already filling with night mobs. I rolled my shoulders. My sword shortened into a second dagger. Speed mode. Try not to make the plaza uglier without me. Owen looked around at the burned stalls, frozen road, cabbage wreckage, and hanging criminals. No promises. I ran. Night mobs were different from dungeon monsters. Dungeons had themes, rules, patterns. Night mobs were what happened when the world's trash folder learned teeth. Bone dogs, smoke birds, crawlers with too many elbows. Floating heads that screamed until windows broke, weak one by one, ugly in groups. I loved groups. Groups had angles. The first pack charged from a side street, 6 bone dogs with jaws clacking like dice. My right dagger marked the wall. My left dagger cut the lead dog's front leg. I stepped to the wall mark, ran sideways across brick, and let the pack crash under me. Then I kicked off, crossed both daggers, and dropped between them in a silver spin. 6 skulls hit the pavement before my shoes did. I did not stop. A smoke bird dove at my face. I threw the left dagger through it. The blade passed through harmless smoke, expected. My right dagger struck a street lamp, leaving a rift mark. I stepped up to the lamp, grabbed it, swung around, and kicked the bird into its own shadow on the ground. Smoke monsters always forgot the shadow was the solid part. The kick stunned it. The left dagger returned and pinned the shadow. The bird popped like a dirty bubble. I crossed the first block in 40 seconds. The second block tried to be clever. Crawler dropped from a fire escape, arms unfolding like a nightmare umbrella. At the same time, 3 screaming heads floated from a broken bakery, mouths opening in rhythm, sound attack plus grab attack. Annoying but polite enough to synchronize. My right hand cut the first scream before it became loud, not the head, the vibration line in front of it. My left hand threw the dagger into the crawler's palm, then pulled with rift step without moving. The crawler's arm jerked across the path of the second scream. The sound hit the crawler, stunned it, and made it slap the third head by accident. I slid under all of them. My sword extended mid-slide, cut the bakery sign free, and the sign dropped onto the crawler with a cheerful metal crunch. The sign said fresh donuts. I saluted it. Thank you for your service. Block 3 had people. Not raiders, civilians trapped inside a bus, surrounded by night mobs scraping at the windows. I had 6 minutes left. The smart plan was to keep running. I hated the smart plan. I threw my sword down the road toward the arcade district. It spun end over end, leaving rift marks every time it kissed pavement. My left dagger became a hook. I jumped onto the bus roof and hooked the emergency hatch. Everybody down. They dropped. Bone dog leaped at the rear window. I kicked it through a side mirror. A smoke bird dove at the front. My dagger cut its shadow across the windshield. The bus shook as crawlers climbed both sides. Good. Let them climb. I cut the hatch open, reached in, and grabbed the first person's sleeve. The civilians climbed out in a panic. I guided them onto the roof while fighting with both hands in two separate conversations. Right dagger stabbed fingers crawling over the left side. Left dagger cut tongues wrapping around the right side. Right foot stomped a skull. Left foot kicked a head into another head. The whole bus became a drum. I knew drums. When the last civilian reached the roof, I jumped down in front of the bus and slammed both blades into the pavement. Chase me. The mobs listened. Monsters were wonderful like that. I sprinted away, dragging the crowd behind me. The sword I had thrown earlier was still marking the road ahead. I reached the first mark and stepped. The world snapped. I appeared 30 feet forward. Another mark. Another step. The mobs followed the line, hungry and stupid. At the final mark, I stopped. Behind me, every monster packed into the narrow street. Above them, the fresh donuts sign from earlier, because the crawler had thrown it during its final tantrum, and it had lodged in a fire escape. I cut the fire escape bolts. The sign fell. The street became a bakery-themed disaster. I kept running. 4 minutes left. The arcade district looked worse than I remembered, which was impressive because it had never been handsome. The old bus station was cracked open. The arcade roof sagged. The claw machines inside blinked like haunted eyes. The supply vault sat below the building, hidden under the rhythm game machine. Because of course it did. I kicked the arcade door open and nearly got flattened by a giant foam sword. For one beautiful second, I thought the universe had developed a sense of humor. Then the foam sword swung again, and I realized the machine prizes had become monsters. Stuffed bears with knife teeth crawled from the claw machines. Plastic race cars revved in circles on the floor. A mascot statue with a smiling animal head stepped from the prize counter, holding a foam sword as tall as a streetlight. Arcade mimic infestation. Clear optional. I did not have time for optional. The mascot swung the foam sword. I ducked. The foam blade smashed 3 machines, bounced off the wall, and smacked the mascot in its own head. I paused. Foam. Bouncy. Ridiculous. Perfect. I threw my left dagger into the foam sword. It stuck halfway, rift mark. The mascot lifted the weapon for another swing. I stepped to the mark, landing on top of the foam blade as it rose. My right sword cut a ceiling pipe. Steam exploded. The stuffed bears lunged blindly. I ran up the foam sword like it was a bridge. The mascot tried to shake me off. I jumped, kicked its smiling head backward, and landed beside the rhythm game machine. The machine lit up. Challenge mode detected. Perfect reaction required. Vault access locked until sequence cleared. I stared at the screen. You have got to be kidding me. 3 minutes left. The notes began falling. Not on screen only. In the room. Glowing arrows dropped from the ceiling, each one becoming a blade of light if missed. The rhythm game was no longer asking for taps. It was trying to dice me into nostalgia. The mascot turned. The stuffed bears crawled closer. The plastic race cars spun around my feet like tiny evil lawn mowers. And the vault wanted perfect reaction. I left. Not because it was easy. Because this was my language. My right blade became a drumstick sword, short and blunt. My left blade became a dagger with a flat back. I stood in front of the machine, feet planted, eyes loose. Notes fell. Right hand struck blue. Left hand struck red. Sword blocked mascot's swing on the offbeat. Dagger stabbed a race car on the half beat. Foot kicked stuffed bear on the double beat. Link cut hit a falling arrow before it became a blade. Flame edge burned 3 notes at once. Riff step carried me from left pad to right pad without missing the center rhythm. The machine sped up. Good. I sped up too. My hands separated. My right hand played the song. My left hand fought the room. Then they switched. Left played melody. Right killed bears. Then both played, both fought, both moved so fast the air turned silver. A note fell behind me. I saw it in the reflection of the broken machine glass. My dagger flipped backward and hit it without my head turning. Perfect. Mascot roared and raised the foam sword for a final overhead smash. I waited until the exact last note. And I struck the note with my sword. Rift stepped to the dagger inside the foam blade and appeared on the weapon as it came down. The momentum launched me straight toward the mascot's face. My left hand grabbed the foam sword. My right hand drove the real sword through the mascot's glowing arcade token core. Critical hit. The mascot exploded into tickets. The rhythm game flashed gold. Perfect clear. Vault open. The machine slid aside, revealing stairs. 2 minutes. I dropped into the vault, grabbed the clean crystal from a pedestal, and immediately heard the worst possible sound. Clapping. Not Owen clapping. Owen clapped like a person surprised his hands worked. This was slow, smug clapping from the shadows. More raiders stepped from behind the shelves. Not the same ones, reinforcements. They had followed the night wave, waited for me to open the vault, and now surrounded the crystal chamber with crossbows, hooks, and ugly little grins. Their leader was not named, and I had no interest in learning. He pointed at the crystal in my hand. Thanks for doing the hard part. I looked at the timer. 1 minute and 40 seconds. I looked at the raiders. 11 of them. I looked at the crystal. Fragile. Then I smiled. You know, I keep wondering why bad people talk before attacking. His grin faded. It gives me time to count. They fired. The chamber filled with bolts. Dual consciousness combat split my world cleanly. Right side tracked the crystal, left side tracked the weapons. My sword became a spinning shield, knocking bolts into shelves. My dagger became a needle, cutting strings, hooks, and trigger fingers with flat strikes. I did not advance. I retreated in circles, exactly where I wanted them to chase. The vault shelves held supplies: rope coils, lantern oil, metal plates, emergency blankets, glass jars of powdered light, wonderful, stupid, useful things. A hook shot toward my wrist. I let it catch my sleeve. The raider yanked. I spun with the pull, kicked a shelf, and dumped powdered light into the air. My sword used flame edge on the lantern oil coating the floor, but only a spark, not enough to burn the crystal. The powder flashed bright. Every shadow skill in the room failed at once. Half the raiders screamed and covered their eyes. The other half rushed. I threw the crystal upward. All eyes followed it. Wrong choice. My dagger cut the shelf ropes. My sword struck the metal plates. Owen would have cried from pride if he saw it. The plates slid down like doors, separating the raiders into narrow lanes. I moved between lanes with rift step marks, appearing, striking, vanishing, never where a weapon expected me. One tried to grab the falling crystal. I stepped off his shoulder, caught the crystal with my knee, bounced it upward, slapped him with the sword flat, spun, caught the crystal in my left hand, and used the dagger hilt to knock another raider into a rope coil. He rolled himself into a knot. That was not even my plan. Sometimes the world volunteered comedy. 30 seconds. I could not fight them all and run back normally. So I stopped fighting normally. I stabbed my dagger into the vault wall and threw my sword up the stairwell as hard as I could. The sword bounced off the ceiling, hit the rhythm machine, and left a rift mark outside the vault entrance. A raider lunged for the crystal. I let him grab the fake. Because while everyone watched the clean crystal in my left hand, my right hand had already swapped it with a glass jar during the first flash. The real crystal was tucked against my wrist under an emergency blanket strap. The raider held up the jar like a trophy. You lose. The jar cracked. Powdered light exploded in his face. I stepped to the sword mark. The vault vanished. The arcade returned. The timer hit 20 seconds. I threw the sword again, this time out the front door, as far down the street as I could. It bounced once, twice, 3 times, leaving marks. I ran after it, stepping mark to mark, crystal tucked safe, night mobs snapping at my heels. 10 seconds. The South Side Plaza came into view. Serena's ice wall was almost gone. Cole stood in front of a crack in the wall, cutting every monster that squeezed through. Owen hung from the lantern tower with tools in his mouth, hair smoking, shouting insults at engineering. 5 seconds. I threw the crystal. Not at Owen. Too obvious. A smoke bird intercepted it midair. Or tried to. The crystal was wrapped in my emergency blanket strap, tied to my dagger. I rift stepped to the dagger, appeared above the smoke bird, grabbed the crystal, kicked the bird into Cole's slash line, and landed on the lantern frame beside Owen. 1 second. I slammed the crystal into Owen's open socket. He hit it with a wrench. The lantern erupted. White light flooded the plaza. Every night mob froze. Then every monster dissolved from the inside out, shadows burning away like paper under sunrise. Southside lantern restored. Night wave repelled. Owen slowly removed the wrench from the crystal frame. I fixed it. You hit it. With expertise. People cheered again, louder this time, because nothing makes a crowd more supportive than almost being eaten twice before dinner. I slid down the lantern frame and landed beside the guards. They had finished dragging the first raiders into holding cells. Then the vault raiders came stumbling out of the arcade district, blind, tied in rope, glowing with powdered light, and chased by a very angry stuffed bear I had apparently missed. I pointed at them. More for the cells. The guards stared. One of them said, "Why is that one sparkling?" "Poor life choices." The stuffed bear jumped at the nearest raider and bit his scarf. I decided not to interfere. By sunset, the south side was safe again. The lanterns shone brighter than before. The raiders were locked away, and the civilians had turned the cabbage cart into a memorial for reasons nobody could fully explain. The kid with the rabbit gave me a small prize ticket from the arcade. "For the swords," he said. I took it like it was a legendary item. Then the system window opened. South side defense complete. Bonus condition achieved. Lantern restored under extreme time limit. Bonus condition achieved. Hostile players captured alive. Dual cooldown tracks efficiency increased. Dual skill casting stability increased. New passive awakened. Paired intent. I blinked. Paired intent. My weapons hummed softly, not in a loud magical way, more like they were thinking about becoming even more of a problem. I raised the sword in my right hand and thought flame. I raised the dagger in my left hand and thought silence. The sword ignited with starfire. The dagger vanished from sight without leaving my grip. Serena watched the invisible dagger's outline bend, light around my hand. That is new. I grinned. It is either amazing or I dropped it. Owen crouched and felt around the ground. Cole gave him one tired look. Owen stood right, invisible, I knew that. Paired intent meant my hands no longer needed full commands. One thought could split into two actions cleanly. Flame and stealth, block and mark, pull and cut, a small upgrade on paper, a nightmare in practice. I spent the next hour testing it on leftover night mobs beyond the safe zone line. A crawler leaped at me from a wall. My right hand thought heavy. My sword became a broad blade and blocked. My left hand thought behind. The invisible dagger marked the wall at the crawler's back, and I rift-stepped the monster into its own attack path. It punched the sword, bounced off, and landed confused in front of Cole. Cole cut it. Another smoke bird tried to flee. Sword thought bright, dagger thought hook. Starfire lit the bird's shadow while the invisible dagger caught it from below. The bird stretched between light and steel until it snapped into harmless smoke. Serena crossed her arms. So your weapons can now follow different instincts. Basically. Owen scratched his chin. Can one instinct be lunch? I tried. Nothing happened. Tragic, he said. But the upgrade was not just power. It changed timing. Before, even with dual consciousness, I still had to choose commands. Fast, yes, but still commands. Now my body could react with paired answers before I finished naming them. When a monster attacked from the front and a trap trigger clicked behind me, my sword blocked the monster while my dagger cut the trap wire. I did not think sword block, dagger cut. I thought survive. Both hands translated. That was dangerous. For my enemies. The next morning, the raider leader tried one last mistake. He was in the holding yard with the others, behind thick bars and lantern seals. No politics, no speeches. Just criminals waiting to be moved into a deeper underground cell once the engineers finished repairing the old courthouse basement. The leader watched me from behind the bars with a swollen eye and a very personal hatred of cabbage. I had come to return the stolen crystals to the guards. Owen came because he wanted to inspect the lantern seals. Serena came because she did not trust either of us around breakable systems. Cole came because Cole appeared wherever the air needed more tension. The leader smiled when he saw us. That was his third bad smile in 2 days. Still acting like a hero, he said. I kept walking. He lifted one hand. A tiny red spark glowed between his fingers. Hidden skill, he had saved it. A delayed fire seed, planted somewhere in the yard, probably under the gate hinges. Blow the bars, release the raiders, cause chaos, grab a civilian, repeat old stupidity. He wanted me to rush him. So I did not. I yawned. That annoyed him more than fear. The spark grew. My invisible dagger was already moving. Paired intent did not need drama. While my right hand held the crystal box, my left hand flicked once. The unseen blade slipped between bars, crossed the yard, and tapped the ground near the leader's boot. Blink cut. Not at him. At the fire seed hidden under the gate hinge. The seed popped like a tiny firecracker. The leader flinched. The raiders stared at the harmless smoke. My sword never left my side. I looked at the guards. You may want to search his shoes. Leader shouted and lunged at the bars. My invisible dagger reappeared half an inch from his nose. He stopped so hard his scarf swung forward. You are really bad at learning, I said. Serena exhaled through her nose, which was her version of laughing. Owen leaned toward the bars. On the bright side, prison is a great place to practice. The leader's eyes went wide. Practice what? Not being terrible. The guards dragged him away from the front row and put him in a lantern-marked inner cell. I thought that was the end of him for now. For once, I was right. The city changed after that. Not the system, not the gates, people. Before, when I walked through a plaza, I heard whispers about Dual Wield being flashy. Now I heard whispers about two blades appearing in two places, about criminals tripping over plans they did not know I had already stolen, about night mobs getting turned into training equipment. Some people still doubted me. That was fine. Doubt was just applause waiting for evidence. Marcus found me near the old arcade that evening. I had not seen him since the labyrinth in the trial-like arena where his perfect style got folded by a skill he once called brave but not useful. He looked different now, less polished, more tired. His sword had new scratches. His eyes had fewer excuses. He stopped a few steps away. I heard about the lantern. Which part? The part where you weaponized cabbages. That was a team effort between me and Destiny. He looked like he wanted to smile, but had forgotten the controls. I also heard you captured the raiders alive. Most of them captured themselves. I just arranged the room. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he bowed his head. Not low, not dramatic, just enough to be real. I was wrong about you. The old me would have made a joke instantly. The new me still wanted to. But I let the moment breeze. Yeah, I said, you were. He accepted that without flinching. I want to learn how to see openings the way you do. That surprised me. Marcus was not asking for my skill. He was not asking for a secret item, a shortcut, or a trick to copy Dual Wield. He was asking to change how he fought. That was harder. I pointed at the rhythm game machine inside the arcade. Can you keep a beat? He frowned. I am an rank swordsman. That is not what I asked. Owen, who had been pretending not to listen from behind a broken vending machine, whispered, he is doomed. Marcus spent the next hour getting bullied by falling arrows on easy mode. It was healing for everyone. He missed left notes because he focused right. He blocked obvious patterns and failed when two things happened at once. Every time he tried to solve the song like a duel, the machine punished him. I stood beside him with both blades sheathed. You are waiting for the important attack. That is how combat works. No, that is how clean combat works. Real combat is a drunk parade with knives. The important attack is usually a distraction from the stupid thing that kills you. A red note and blue note fell together. Marcus hit red late and missed blue entirely. The machine buzzed. Owen clapped once. Marcus glared. Serena leaned against the wall, watching with quiet interest. Cole stood by the door. I could not tell if he was guarding us or silently judging the arcade cabinet. Again, I said. Marcus tried again. And again. By the 10th run, he stopped thinking of the notes as attacks to defeat. He started feeling the pattern. His sword hand twitched before the red note reached the line. His offhand moved toward blue. Not fast enough, but honest. Progress looked ugly before it looked cool. The machine finally gave him a passing score. Marcus stared at it like he had defeated a dragon that required humility damage. I tossed him the prize ticket the kid had given me. Congratulations, you are now stronger than a stuffed bear. He looked at the ticket. Is this supposed to mean something? Deeply. Owen nodded. We are all very proud. Marcus put the ticket in his pocket anyway. That mattered more than he wanted anyone to know. The training became useful sooner than expected because the next gate opened under the old shopping district at dawn. Not above it. Under it. The ground folded inward like paper, and the entire district dropped 3 stories into a glowing pit. Shops, streetlights, food stalls, broken cars, and half a fountain sank into a circular arena made of white stone. Mirror pit opened. Entry limit 6. Clear condition, defeat the reflected champion. Special condition, damage dealt to reflection may return to original. Recommended rank S. I stared into the pit. Inside, mirrors floated everywhere, tall and thin, showing not faces but possible versions of whoever looked into them. Stronger versions, faster versions, cowardly versions, dead versions, very annoying versions. Owen leaned over the edge. I vote we do not jump into the giant vanity hole. Serena tied back her hair. Vote denied. Why do my votes keep losing? Cole stepped off the edge without warning. We all watched him fall. A second later, a white platform rose to catch him halfway down. Owen pointed, he tested it. He fell silently, I said. That is different. He entered with Marcus as the fifth, not because we needed another perfect fighter, but because the gate's special conditions smelled like the kind of lesson that would either improve him or launch him through a mirror. Possibly both. The moment we landed in the arena, the mirrors turned toward us. Reflections stepped out. Not exact copies, worse. Each reflection was what the mirror thought we feared becoming. Cole's reflection had no sword, just empty hands and a smile, like a version of him that had decided cutting was too slow. Serena's reflection wore ice like a cage, every movement sharp and cold. Owen's reflection had 1,000 trap discs spinning behind him, and absolutely no fear of friendly fire. Marcus's reflection looked flawless, polished, perfect. The old version of him turned into a blade. Mine stepped out last. 2 weapons. 2 eyes moving separately. No jokes. That offended me most. The mirrored me lifted a sword and dagger, copying my stance perfectly. Then it split its weapons into 4. 2 more spectral blades floated behind it, each moving like extra hands. Owen stared. That one is cheating. I know, rudes. The fight began without a countdown. Every reflection attacked the person it came from. The mirror pit wanted clean duels. It wanted us separated, focused inward, stuck fighting our own worst habits. So I ruined that immediately. I threw my dagger at Serena's reflection. The mirror pit punished me. Damage transfer backlash flashed across my left shoulder. A cut opened where my dagger had struck ice. Special condition confirmed. Heard a reflection wrong, hurt yourself. Fine. I had learned from the Leviathan. If an enemy watched obvious outcomes, create stupid ones. If damage returned to the original, then the trick was not to damage the reflection. It was to make the reflection damage itself. My mirrored copy charged. 4 blades came from 4 angles. Top slash, low stab, left feint, right invisible cut. It was beautiful. I hated that it was beautiful. My right sword blocked high. My left dagger parried low, paired intense split, defend and mock. I leaned close as our blades locked. Your face is too serious. It did not react. Awful. I kicked a mirror shard between us. My reflection's spectral blade cut through it, aiming for my neck. The shard spun, caught the blade's light, and reflected its own attack path back into another mirror. The reflected slash bounced. Not into me. Into its own floating blade. The blade cracked. No backlash. Because I had not damaged it. It had damaged itself with geometry. Owen shouted from across the arena, "That is my favorite crime." His reflection unleashed a field of trap discs. Owen immediately threw himself flat. The discs spun over him and headed toward Serena. Serena froze half. Cole cut 2. Marcus, to his credit, hit one with the flat of his sword and sent it into a mirror. The mirror bounced it back into Owen's reflection. Owen's reflection exploded into rope, springs, and offended smoke. Owen lifted his head. I have learned nothing and succeeded. The arena shifted. Mirrors slid between us like walls. The gate forced us apart again. My reflection followed, 4 blades carving lines in the ground. It did not speak. It did not hesitate. It was me without distractions, without mercy, without the stupid little instinct to save people while making jokes. For a moment, I understood why enemies got stressed. I ran backward through a corridor of mirrors. Each mirror showed a different Jace, one holding a single massive sword, one using magic from both palms, one kneeling beside fallen friends, one wearing a crown of black glass. I looked away from that one. No crown nonsense, not my genre. My reflection used my own trick. It threw a dagger past me, marked a mirror, and Rift stepped behind my back. At the same time, the spectral blades attacked from the front. 4 attacks, 2 hands. Old me would have blocked 2 and dodged 2. New me asked a better question. What else was on the battlefield? My right sword struck the floor, not the blade. Starfire melted a white stone tile. My left dagger cut a hanging mirror chain. The mirror dropped between me and the spectral blades. The blades struck the mirror and bounced toward the real reflection behind me. It dodged. Expected. But dodging put it on the melted tile. Its foot slipped. One floating blade came a fraction late. Dual critical windows opened. Not on the bodies. On the rhythm. I struck the delay with my dagger. My sword struck the overcorrection. The reflection's four-blade pattern collapsed into two confused halves. I did not cut it. I cut its timing. The mirror pit had no rule for that. Across the arena, Marcus was losing. His perfect reflection pressed him hard, every clean strike beating his defense by half an inch. Marcus kept trying to win the duel properly. The reflection loved that. It was better at proper. It was born proper. I could not damage it without backlash to Marcus. So I helped him cheat. I threw my invisible dagger past Marcus, not at the reflection, but at the rhythm game prize ticket sticking out of Marcus's pocket. The dagger flicked the ticket into the air. Marcus saw it. For one tiny instant, his perfect focus broke. His reflection made from his old perfection expected shame, expected anger, expected Marcus to rush and prove himself. Instead, Marcus laughed. One short, surprised laugh. Then he stepped off beat. The reflection's flawless counter missed. Marcus hit it with the flat of his sword, knocking it into a mirror behind him. The mirror bounced his own momentum back, and the reflection slammed itself into the ground. No backlash. Marcus looked at me. I gave him a thumbs up. He looked embarrassed, which meant character development was happening. Serena solved her reflection by freezing the mirrors instead of the body. The ice gauge version of her kept trying to trap her in perfect walls. Serena let the walls close, then froze the reflection of the walls, turning the prison inside out. The mirror copy locked itself in its own cage. Cole's fight was the quietest and somehow most terrifying. His reflection without a sword kept stepping inside his range, trying to prove he was more than his weapon. Cole let it come close, then set his sword gently on the ground. Everyone, including the reflection, paused. Cole punched it. The reflection flew through 3 mirrors. Owen whispered, I did not know he had hands. The pit did not like us winning wrong. All mirrors rose at once and fused above the arena, forming a giant reflected champion made of all our bad habits. 4 arms, ice ribs, trap wings, empty-handed grin, perfect sword posture. My extra blades floating around its head, like a crown it absolutely did not deserve. Reflected champion awakened. Damage return active. Attack it, hurt ourselves, ignore it, get crushed. The champion slammed one arm down, the arena split, shards flew like knives, Serena made an ice dome, Cole cut the largest shard, Owen's traps caught 3 more. Marcus almost blocked cleanly, then remembered the lesson and ducked instead. Progress. The champion opened its chest. Inside was a mirror core showing all 5 of us at once. That was the target. Also the trap. If we broke it directly, the backlash would break us too. I smiled. The champion's head tilted. Reflected me understood the smile too late. We are not going to hit the core, I said. Owen's eyes widened. Are we going to make the core hit itself? Obviously. Wonderful, my influence is spreading. The plan needed 5 moving parts and absolutely no dignity. Serena froze a ramp angled toward the champion's chest. Cole cut a pillar so it fell onto the ramp like a giant sled. Owen attached trap discs to the pillar while giggling in a deeply concerning way. Marcus stood at the far end with his sword ready, not to slash, but to redirect. My job was to convince the champion to use its strongest reflected attack. I ran straight at it. All 4 arms moved, ice trap discs, empty palm, perfect sword. My sword blocked ice, my dagger cut trap lines, my foot stepped over the palm. My shoulder took a shallow cut from the perfect sword because sometimes bait needed blood. The mirror core brightened. It prepared to copy my twin execution. That would be bad if it aimed at us. So I gave it a better target. I jumped onto Serena's ice ramp and sprinted up the falling pillar. Owen's trap discs fired beneath it, accelerating the pillar like the world's worst carnival ride. Marcus struck the back end with a flat, redirected blow, turning the pillar's path a few degrees. The champion fired 2 mirrored execution beams from its core. I dropped flat on the pillar. The beams missed me and struck the champion's own reflected blades floating behind its head. The blades shattered. Backlash hit the champion because the attack was its own. The core cracked. Now, twin execution mode stirred, but I did not activate it alone. This needed everyone. Cole's one strike cut the cracked core's reflection, not the core. Serena froze the reflected crack. Owen triggered a trap that bounced the frozen reflection back into the mirror surface. Marcus struck the returning image with the prize ticket timing he had finally learned, just off beat, just wrong enough to be right. The reflected core saw itself breaking. And because mirrors are stupidly loyal to drama, it copied the image. The real core broke from the inside. The champion froze, confused by its own defeat. I jumped from the pillar, landed on its shoulder, and tapped its forehead with both hilts. Work on yourself. It shattered into white dust. Marrow pit clear. When we climbed out of the shopping district, the crowd waiting above did not know how to react. They had seen the gate. They had heard the impact. They had watched pieces of mirror fly into the sky. Then Owen emerged riding a floating trap disc like a tiny parade float, waving both arms. The crowd cheered because people will cheer almost anything if it is confusing enough. Marcus climbed out behind him, covered in dust, holding the prize ticket like it was a sacred relic. He looked at me once and nodded. Not a rival anymore. Not exactly a friend either. Something better than before. Someone who had stopped laughing at the wrong thing. The system updated again. Marrow pit clear. Bonus condition achieved. Reflected champion defeated without direct core strike. Paired intent refined. Dual consciousness combat expanded. Twin execution mode synchronization increased. I flexed my hands. For half a breath I felt it. Not just two weapons. Two versions of me standing shoulder to shoulder inside one body. One reckless. One precise. One making jokes. One counting heartbeats. Both smiling. That should have scared me. Instead, it felt like finally having enough hands for the kind of trouble I kept choosing. That evening, we returned to the south side for actual rest. This time, I made it 22 minutes. A messenger stumbled into the plaza, pale and shaking, pointing toward downtown where the sky had begun to bend inward. No one had to ask. I saw the darkness forming between the skyscrapers, perfect and silent, like somebody had cut a square hole in the day. Then the black gate finished opening. Black gate opened above downtown, not huge, not loud, a perfect square of darkness between skyscrapers with a white number counting down from 100. Obsidian gate. Entry limit 5. Clear condition, defeat the abyssal Leviathan. Failure condition, gate falls into city center. Recommended rank, S-rank party. 5 people. I then more than 5 strong fighters wanted in. Some demanded slots, some offered rare items, some tried duels. I ignored all of it because the gate was not a popularity contest. The team was obvious. Me, Cole, Serena, Owen. For the 5th slot, we chose no one. People were furious, but Owen had done the math. Every extra person meant more variables, more targets, more ways for traps to launch friends instead of enemies. Serena could control zones better if she knew exactly where we were. Cole needed clean lines. And me. I was already 2 problems. When the gate descended, the 4 of us stood on a rooftop. Owen looked at the darkness and swallowed. I would like to officially resign from standing near that. Denied, Serena said. Do you have authority to deny? No. Somehow worse. Cole drew his sword. I rolled my shoulders and felt both twin-bound blades shift. The gate touched the roof. Darkness swallowed us. Inside was an ocean with no sky. We stood on a black glass platform floating above water so dark it reflected nothing. Broken towers rose from the ocean like drowned city bones. Stars shone under the water instead of above it. The system message appeared once. Defeat the abyssal Leviathan. Then the water rose. Tentacles erupted from below, each thicker than a train, covered in eyes and armor plates. Serena froze waves before they swallowed the platform. Cole cut tentacles when joints exposed. Owen planted traps that turned platform pieces into floating mines. I moved wherever 2 disasters overlapped. A tentacle attacked Serena from behind while a wave crashed from the front. My right blade became a long sword and cut the wave open with starfire. My left blade became a hook dagger and caught the tentacle's eye ridge, pulling it into Cole's slash line. Another tentacle smashed the platform under Owen. He fell. I threw my dagger past him. Rift stepped down, grabbed his collar, threw my sword upward, and stepped back to it with Owen screaming the entire way. Why is rescue always vertical? Because you keep falling. The Leviathan surfaced after we cut enough tentacles. It was enormous, a serpent whale dragon nightmare made of black scales, glowing blue scars, and a mouth large enough to argue with geography. Eyes opened along its body. Each eye saw a different future. When Cole prepared one strike, eyes closed and the body shifted before he swung. When Serena formed ice, heat pulses melted the freeze points. When Owen armed mines, tiny mouth tentacles swallowed them. The Leviathan did not need to be faster. It saw too many possibilities. I attacked anyway. The first exchange threw me through a tower. I hit black stone, bounced, and landed on a platform shard. My health dropped hard. The Leviathan's nearest eye blinked slowly, almost bored. That made me mad. I jumped back in. Sword high, dagger low. The eye tracked both. I swapped lengths midair. It tracked that too. I used rift step between scale marks. 3 eyes followed. I faked Starfare. 5 eyes closed before the fake. It was not reading motion. It was reading outcomes. So I gave it stupid outcomes. I threw my sword into the water. Every eye near me opened. Nobody throws a main weapon into an endless abyss ocean unless something is wrong with them. Correct. The sword sank, leaving a rift mark. The Leviathan ignored it after a second and lunged at me. My dagger became a short sword. I fought badly on purpose, favoring the left, protecting my empty right side, looking desperate. The Leviathan opened its mouth. Below, my sinking sword passed under one of Owen's floating mines. I rift stepped to the sword. Suddenly I was underwater, beneath the Leviathan's jaw, grabbing the hilt as the mine drifted above me. The pressure crushed my lungs. The Leviathan's eyes rolled down too late. I stabbed the sword into the mine and used Starfare. Steam exploded under the monster's jaw. The blast launched me out of the water like a cannonball. My dagger fell into my left hand. I crossed both blades and carved a glowing mark across the Leviathan's jaw. It roared. Owen pointed from the platform. That counts as fishing. Serena yelled, "Focus." The Leviathan broke the ocean. Water split into floating rivers, twisting through the air like living roads. Platforms shattered into hundreds of pieces. Gravity became local. Up depended on which river you stood near. The Leviathan swam through air and water at once. Serena built ice bridges between rivers. Cole jumped from shard to shard, saving one strike for exposed scars. Owen's traps became drifting mines, anchors, springboards, and one spinning emergency platform he refused to explain. I became the thread tying it together. Dual consciousness let me track 2 gravities at once. Right side fought on the platform under my feet. Left side tracked the river above my head. My sword blocked teeth from the front. My dagger cut a water current behind me so Serena's bridge would not collapse. A tail swept from below. I hooked a rift mark on a floating shard and pulled sideways. A mouth opened above Owen. I threw my sword through an eye, making the Leviathan blink long enough for Cole to cut the mouth tentacle away. Then the Leviathan opened all its eyes. The gate went silent. Every possible attack I could make appeared as a black afterimage around me. Thousands of Jaces, each choosing a different angle, skill, weapon length. The Leviathan watched them all and selected futures where I died. My body locked. For once, speed was not enough. Cleverness was not enough. 2 hands were not enough if the enemy could see every hand I might move. Then Owen's voice crackled from a trap communicator. "Hey, Jace. I'm busy being predicted. Good news, I made something dumb." A floating mine drifted past with a trap disc attached. On it, written in chalk, were the words "Do not use unless funny." "What is it?" "A randomizer." "Owen. It launches you somewhere." "Where?" "Somewhere." Monster that sees outcomes hates randomness, not true randomness, human stupidity, the kind no future model wants to include because it lowers the dignity of reality. I stepped onto Owen's randomizer. It launched me backward, sideways, upward, and spiritually diagonally. I screamed, not fear, surprise mostly. The Leviathan's future eyes stuttered, the afterimages scattered. I flew past a floating river, bounced off an ice bridge Serena made at the last second, spun over Cole's head, and landed on the Leviathan's back with both blades accidentally embedded in 2 different scars. Dual critical windows opened. I was upside down, my left boot was smoking, my right sleeve was gone. I had no idea where my original plan had died. Perfect. I pulled both blades. The scars ripped open. Cole released one strike along the Leviathan's spine. Serena froze the open scars so they could not close. Owen launched every remaining mine into the exposed path. The Leviathan crashed into the ocean, shaking the gate. Then darkness swallowed everything. The ocean vanished, the platforms vanished. Serena, Cole, and Owen vanished from sight. I floated in black space with only my blades glowing. 2 hearts appeared in the distance. The Leviathan had 2 cores. Of course it did. One deep blue pulsing with water and gravity, one white-black pulsing with future sight. They orbited each other. Damage one, the other healed it. Attack both separately, the distance changed. Wait too long, they merged and reset. Twin execution mode hummed in my bones. This was the real condition. 2 perfect endings, separated by space, time, and purpose. But I was not alone. Serena's ice light appeared near the gravity core. Cole's white slash aura appeared near the future core. Owen's trap signals blinked between them like nervous fireflies. The team was inside the inner world too, scattered but alive. The Leviathan's voice filled the dark, not words, pressure, hunger, a question. Which one will you save? The gravity core pulled Serena toward it, crushing her ice barriers. The future core surrounded Cole with afterimages of his own death. Owen was caught between cores, trapped spinning out of control. Again, the world offered me a choice. Again, I refused. Right side to Serena. Left side to Cole. I threw the sword toward the gravity core and the dagger toward the future core. Then I moved between them, not fully stepping to either. Dual consciousness stretched. Twin execution waited. My body became the midpoint of a decision split in two. The sword reached Serena first. I rift stepped through it just enough for my right hand to cut the gravity pull. My left hand, still anchored to the dagger, snapped toward Cole's core and slashed through a death afterimage before it touched him. I was in two rescues at once. My muscles screamed. Owen's trap signals stabilized into a path. He had connected his discs between both cores, not to explode, but to mark distance. Owen, the absolute lunatic, had built a bridge for my skill inside a monster's soul. I followed it. Right hand, sword, gravity core. Left hand, dagger, future core. The sword became long and heavy, cutting through pressure. The dagger became short and silent, cutting through afterimages. Serena froze the gravity core's shell from inside. Cole held one strike until the future core committed to dodging me instead of him. That was the trick. Leviathan could see futures, but it still had to choose which danger mattered. So I made both matter equally. I opened a wound on the gravity core with my sword. At the exact same instant, my dagger opened a wound on the future core. The Leviathan tried to heal gravity with future. Cole cut this healing line. It tried to shift future with gravity. Serena froze the shift. Owen triggered every bridge trap, locking the distance for 1 second. 1 second. For me, that was a lifetime wearing a stopwatch. Twin execution mode activated. My right vision narrowed to the gravity core's heart. My left vision narrowed to the future core's heart. 2 cores, 2 hands, 2 endings. I did not shout. I did not need to. The sword drove through gravity. The dagger drove through future. Same instant. The inner world split with silent blue-white light. Abyssal Leviathan defeated. Obsidian gate clear. We fell out of the gate above downtown, with the Leviathan dissolving into blue rain around us. Safe zone lanterns flared brighter than ever. Cole landed on one knee. Serena crashed through an ice ramp and rolled into a fountain. Owen landed in a trash pile, which he later claimed was strategic because it softened impact. I landed standing. For half a second, I looked incredible. Then my legs remembered the last fight, and I fell face first onto the street. Worth it. The city erupted, people poured from shelters, fighters cheered. Someone started chanting my name, then Serena's, then Cole's, then Owen's, then got confused and started chanting Trash Hero because Owen raised both arms from the trash pile like a champion. The ranking board updated. Cole S rank. Serena S rank. Owen a rank support, labyrinth engineer. Jace S rank. Then my name flickered. Unique skill classification updated. Dual Wield, sovereign grade, unique skill. Twin execution mode stabilized. Dual consciousness combat stabilized. Next evolution condition unknown. There it was. The open door. Reminder that no matter how high I climbed, the system still had another absurd step waiting in the dark. That night the city celebrated with food, lanterns, repaired speakers, and people alive who would not have been alive if we failed. No speeches, no ceremonies, no nonsense. Owen told the hollow train story wrong on purpose, making himself taller every time. Serena corrected him until she gave up and started freezing drinks. Cole sat quietly near the edge of the lantern light, and every few minutes someone tried to thank him, panicked under his stare, and walked away bowing slightly for no reason. I sat on the roof of the arcade, where everything started. The old sign was still broken. The rhythm game machine inside had survived somehow. Its screen flickered through the window, waiting for coins nobody used anymore. I looked at my hands, at the twin-bound blades resting across my knees, and remembered everyone laughing when the system gave me Dual Wield. Flashy but impractical. A beginner trap. Cosplay package. Maybe they were right for anyone else. For me, it had never been about holding 2 weapons. It was about refusing the single path everyone expected: attack or defend, save or win, left or right, power or trick, serious or stupid. The world kept trying to make me pick one answer, and I kept writing two answers, so fast reality accepted both. Owen climbed onto the roof with 2 bowls of suspicious stew. He handed me one. Good news, it is probably food. That word is doing a lot of work. Serena followed with a frozen bottle. Cole appeared last, silent as usual, because apparently even roofs could not stop him from being dramatic. We sat there watching blue sparks fade over the city. For once, nobody needed a plan. Then the arcade machine below us turned on by itself. Music started playing. Fast music. Too fast. My system window opened. New World sector detected beyond Eastern Horizon. Sky Labyrinth access beacon ignited. Recommended rank unknown. The 4 of us looked east. Far beyond the broken skyline, a pillar of pale gold light rose into the clouds. Around it floated islands, chains, towers, and something enormous moving behind the dawn like a shadow with wings. Owen slowly set down his stew. No. Serena sighed. Cole stood. I picked up both blades. The left one shortened into a dagger. The right one lengthened into a sword. Somewhere in that impossible sky, a new battlefield was waiting. New monsters, new traps, new people ready to laugh at the wrong thing. And if the system thought unknown rank was enough to scare me, it clearly had not been paying attention. I looked at the glowing horizon and smiled. Fine, but this time I am bringing the foam sword.